Chapter 282. Wu Tong looked at Wang Long's expression and guessed what he wanted to say. She then turned to look at Qin Guang, who was sitting on the sofa with an expressionless face. The anger that had gradually subsided rose from the bottom of her heart again. Captain Wu. Wang Long was about to speak. Wu Tong waved her hand fiercely. Don't speak for him. I have said before that he should change his bad temper. Today he actually attacked a police officer in front of us. If I don't correct him, my name is not Wu Tong. She didn't give Wang Long a chance to say another word. She passed by him like the wind and stood in front of Qin Guang. Looking at the trash can full of drunkards' peanut packaging, barbecue sticks, and 6 cans of beer, Wu Tong's face completely darkened. I worked so hard to clean up outside, but I asked you to come here to be educated, but you became eating barbecue and watching football? Taking a few deep breaths, she calmed her mood. Qin Guang, come here. I have something to say to you. Wu Tong suppressed the anger in her heart. She also knew that this place was someone else's branch, and she couldn't let others see her as a joke. She walked to the interrogation room. Wang Long came over eagerly. I want to help you say something. Qin Guang was also expressionless at this time. He just waved his hand and said, Thank you, brother Wang Long. It's okay, I will go and talk to her myself. If it were another time, Qin Guang would indeed be very patient to explain to Wu Tong, and even use the long-lost pestering skill to make her obedient. After all, he owed her a lot of favors. Since he owed her a favor, he would feel weak in his heart. Hence, Qin Guang's patience with Wu Tong was also much better than others. Moreover, Qin Guang also knew that although she was a bit irritable, she was a good person. But today was different. This day was too special. Tomorrow morning was the most important event in Qin Guang's life so far. Even if the sky was falling, he had to give in to his mother's surgery. Qin Guang had already wasted 2 hours here, and he hadn't had a good rest until now. Qin Guang was already very impatient. When he thought of tomorrow's surgery, the uncertainty made him even more anxious and uneasy. On top of that, Qin Guang had drunk 3 tins of beer, which boosted his courage. Even though he understood Wu Tong's misunderstanding, he still felt indignant for himself. Even if you really like me, I don't like you. We don't have that kind of relationship at all. What right do you have to throw a tantrum at me? I don't care if you talk about our relationship in your own place, but why are you giving me that attitude again and again? What are you doing? Do you really think of yourself as my woman? Have I given my consent and approval? When have I ever taken advantage of you? So what if I really slept with Sun Xiaoxuan? Do I need to ask for your permission? What's more, Sun Xiaoxuan and I aren't even close. Are you done yet? Just like that, Qin Guang walked into the interrogation room with an imposing manner. Wu Tong, who was next to him, slammed the door shut. She then looked at Qin Guang, who was standing by the door, and sneered. Qin Guang also stared at her. Are you done? Wu Tong said angrily, What do you mean I'm done? You are just a little brat, right? Not only did you bring a little girl to a hotel, but you also hit the police? Do you really think that with me covering for you, you can do whatever you want in Wujing City? What's the difference between you and Pan Jiang, that kind of rich second generation? What did you say to me before? What are you doing now? Qin Guang spat at the side. Didn't you hear how unpleasant that person's words were? Does he mean that I deserve to be wronged? Sun Xiaoxuan was called a prostitute, and I have to swallow my anger? Even if I don't know you, I will still beat him up. Do you believe me? No matter what the reason is, it's wrong to hit people. Wu Tong said forcefully. What a joke. If I can tolerate this, am I still a man? As the two talked, the atmosphere became heated. Wang Long, who was eavesdropping outside, was anxious, but there was nothing he could do. Wu Tong snorted. Yes, I know that you and that little girl named Sun Xiaoxuan are a couple. She is very important to you and you can't let her be wronged, right? Qin Guang was so angry that he laughed. He waved his hand and said, Think what you want. There is nothing between me and her. Clatter. As soon as he finished speaking, Sun Xiaoxuan's white bra fell out of his sleeve and fell on the ground between the two of them. Qin Guang was dumbfounded. How could I forget that this thing was in my sleeve? You call this nothing? Wu Tong looked down at the white bra. Her brain was stiff at first, but she quickly reacted. She was so angry that her face turned red. Forget it. Qin Guang just quietly bent down and tucked the bra back into his sleeve. He didn't even have the mood to explain. What the F***ck? Just as he was about to prove his innocence aggressively, this thing was actually thrown at him? Even if I am the best talker in history, Zhang Heng, I can't do anything. What else can I say? Say my ass. Forget it. I can't be bothered to argue with you. I'm leaving. Qin Guang was about to open the door. He didn't want to explain, couldn't explain, and didn't need to. He was too lazy to care about what Wu Tong thought. He planned to leave first. Stop. Wu Tong raised her hand and pressed the door lock. You can't leave. Qin Guang turned around and looked at Wu Tong. What? You're interfering with official business. You've violated public security regulations. I have the right to detain you. Wu Tong felt extremely wronged. Up until now, Qin Guang hadn't explained anything to her. However, she was in no position to take the initiative to uncover the matter and ask what she wanted to say. She never thought that from the beginning to the end, whether it was Qin Guang, Sun Xiaoxuan, or even Wang Long, they all wanted to explain to her. It was she who didn't give them the chance to speak, which led to the current situation. Qin Guang took a deep breath and forcibly suppressed his anger. When he looked at Wu Tong again, there was no longer any familiarity in his eyes. There was only a strong sense of distance and unfamiliarity. He finally understood. Perhaps the aftereffects of his second-generation rich sister's severe hypnosis had remained until now. As a result, she really did have feelings for him. That was why she became like this today. Dealing with her like this is too strenuous. I'm tired. He used to think that dealing with her was easy and pleasant, but now it seemed that he had thought too simply of her. After all, she was the daughter of an aristocratic family. No matter how well she hid her big missy temperament, it would sooner or later erupt and see the light of day. If she really had such a temperament and didn't care whether it was right or wrong, and insisted on making life difficult for him like a crazy woman, then this friendship would be broken. As for the favor he owed her, he would just give her a few 100,000 yuan and treat it as paying it off. With such thoughts in his mind, Qin Guang was attacked by the alcohol and anger at the same time. His thoughts were a little out of control. Qin Guang also misunderstood Wu Tong. He thought that Wu Tong didn't want to hear an explanation at all. In fact, Wu Tong's brain had short-circuited before. Now, she was extremely eager for him to say something that could make her feel at ease. Even if it was to lie to her that there was nothing between him and Sun Xiaoxuan. Even if she had clearly seen the bra, as long as Qin Guang was willing to make it up, no matter how absurd the lie sounded, she would be willing to believe it. However, it was already too late. Enough, it's really enough. Once his mind made a decision, when Qin Guang spoke again, his voice was no longer angry but cold. Wu Tong's whole body quivered. She vaguely realized Qin Guang's plan, and her expression became flustered. Chapter 283. Wu Tong swallowed her saliva and said nervously, Qin Guang? I'm a little angry. Qin Guang shook his head slowly. I can probably guess what you're angry about. I originally wanted to explain it to you. But is there really a need to explain it now? Say it. I'll believe whatever you say. At this time, Wu Tong was no longer the captain of the Wenxing branch. She was just a frightened woman. Well, I'll tell you. My mom is lying in Wujing City Hospital now. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, she will go into the operating room for a kidney transplant. Do you understand? I have to go to the hospital at 6 o'clock in the morning, but I was called to this place by you. I can't go back to the hotel until now. How do you think I should feel right now? I don't know what your position is, but you seem to care about my relationship with Sun Xiaoxuan. Then I'll tell you. She is my squad leader and she came here to help. Because there were no extra rooms in the hotel, she could only squeeze into the same room as me. It was a double bed and it was an unfortunate coincidence. Do you believe it? This bra was originally hidden under the pillow. Your assistant policeman wanted to lift the pillow, so I beat him up. Do you believe it? Then I didn't want the girl's private clothes to be seen by others, so I stuffed it into my sleeve. Do you believe it? Forget it, it's up to you if you don't believe it. That's it. I'm done talking. After Qin Guang finished, he pushed the dumbfounded Wu Tong away, opened the door of the interrogation room and walked out quickly. Didn't you say last time that your mother just had a small problem? How could that be? Wu Tong suddenly understood the reason why Qin Guang was so angry and out of control. Qin Guang turned around. Because I wasn't familiar with you at the time. There was no need to tell you in detail about this family's private affairs. I don't need someone I'm not familiar with to help me share my pain. By the way, I do owe you a favor. I'm very sorry about this. I'll find a way to return the favor. Goodbye. With that, Qin Guang strode away, not giving Wu Tong any chance to speak. Wu Tong's face turned pale as she watched his figure disappear out of the branch office in an instant. When Wang Long saw this, he knew that things were developing in the worst direction, so he hurried over. Wu Tong took a deep breath and almost roared in front of everyone, You must know Wang Long, right? Why didn't you tell me earlier? Wang Long had a bitter look on his face. I wanted to tell you a long time ago, but I didn't have the chance to. Wu Tong's body almost went limp. She leaned against the wall and rubbed her head in pain, but she didn't have the courage to chase after Qin Guang. Even if she did, she didn't know what to say to Qin Guang. Her previous anger came without reason, and now her disappointment was also without reason. She was very confused and upset, but she didn't want to admit that she really liked Qin Guang. Wu Tong locked herself in the break room of the branch office. She tried to call her best friend, Tang Ying, who was in Wujing City Hospital, but Tang Ying's phone was turned off. Wu Tong threw her phone on the coffee table, lay down on her back and curled up on the sofa. She muttered to herself, "How did it become like this? I'm really a terrible person. I'll find a suitable opportunity to apologize to him. He should be able to forgive me, right? He's also very angry. If it were me, I'm afraid I'd be even angrier than him." He was so angry that he even said that he didn't know me well. This was really depressing to the point of being powerless. When Qin Guang returned to the hotel, it was already 5 o'clock in the morning. He tiptoed back to his room and carefully placed the bra next to the sleeping Sun Xiaoxuan's pillow. He gently lay down next to him with his clothes on. The alcohol mixed with drowsiness and he could finally sleep for an hour. Before falling asleep, Qin Guang still remembered Wu Tong's pale face with regret before he left, and he faintly felt a little uncomfortable. He thought to himself that she might really be very sad, but he could only sigh in his heart. Sometimes life is quite helpless. Although he knew that she might not have any evil intentions, he couldn't help but gradually become disgusted with her. It's good to sour my relationship with her as soon as possible. I should keep my distance from people like her in the first place, and at the same time, I should cut off my relationship with her as my godsister. That way, I won't get into more trouble because of Lioli's overly effective divine hypnosis. This godsister is actually not that cheap. Her background is a little too big. Indeed, someone like me shouldn't be trying to get close to her. Maybe if I put down my pride and coax her a little, she would be able to calm down? Actually, she's quite easy to fool, but what's the point of doing this? I really don't have the mood to think about these things right now. Or even if I manage to coax her today, it will become like this sooner or later, right? The next day, Sun Xiaoxuan's alarm rang on time at 6 o'clock in the morning. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Qin Guang lying next to her, and the boulder in her heart was instantly lifted. Sun Xiaoxuan's face was flushed red as she took her legs off Qin Guang's bed while trembling with fear. Her face was extremely red. She didn't know how she slept last night. As she slept, she moved to face Qin Guang's side. Then, just like how she usually hugged a doll in the dorm, she hugged Qin Guang, who was wrapped in a cup, tightly as if he was a doll. She even put her legs on his body. Fortunately, this idiot was sleeping like a log and didn't notice. Sun Xiaoxuan quietly turned off the alarm and washed up even more carefully, not making the slightest sound. Seeing that Qin Guang was still sleeping like a log, Sun Xiaoxuan thought for a moment and didn't rush to wake him up. Instead, she pulled out the room card and went downstairs. After eating breakfast in the dining room, she brought 2 buns, a box of porridge and an egg upstairs. After placing the breakfast on the bedside table, Sun Xiaoxuan sat on the edge of the bed and quietly looked at the sleeping Qin Guang. When he thought about what happened last night, he felt a faint sense of grievance, but it was more of a sweet feeling. He's always like this, protecting me like an angry lion. I don't know if he explained it to Officer Wu. Sun Xiaoxuan's mood was a bit complicated. He hoped that Qin Guang and Wu Tong would really break up because of this, but he also felt that this misunderstanding was caused by him. He felt ashamed, and he also felt that Qin Guang had been mentally and physically exhausted for the past 2 days. Sun Xiaoxuan didn't help much when he came over, and instead caused trouble for him. How about I go back and explain it to the armed police officer? Sun Xiaoxuan buried the faint unwillingness in his heart and made up his mind. The 2 of them were scheduled to go to the hospital at 6:30 a.m. Sun Xiaoxuan waited for another 5 minutes until 6:20 a.m., but Qin Guang still hadn't woken up. He had to wake him up. Sun Xiaoxuan pushed Qin Guang's body and said softly, "Wake up! Qin Guang, wake up!" It was no use. He only closed his eyes at 5 a.m. It had only been an hour, so how could Qin Guang wake up so easily? Sun Xiaoxuan pushed him harder, but he still didn't move. He was really sleeping like a dead pig. Why is he sleeping so soundly? What should I do? Sun Xiaoxuan moved her face in front of Qin Guang and looked at the guy with the dark circles under his eyes. She was worried. She looked straight at Qin Guang, and her mind was suddenly emptied. He looks so good when he's sleeping. He looks good no matter how I look at him. I really want to look at his face like this for the rest of my life. For some reason, Sun Xiaoshuan opened her eyes wide and moved forward bit by bit. Her lips touched his lips like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water, and then she shrank back like a startled rabbit. Her face was extremely red, and the burning sensation spread from her neck to her ears, then to her face. Her heart was pounding, and she looked like a child who had secretly eaten a snack. He really slept like a log. Sun Xiaoshuan moved forward again and whispered in his ear, "Qin Guang. I'll like you." Then Qin Guang slowly opened his eyes. "What are you doing?" "My ears are itchy." Get up, get up. It's 6:30 a.m. Sun Xiaoshuan ran outside. "I'll wait for you downstairs. Eat your breakfast and go downstairs." "It's weird." Qin Guang rubbed his eyes in a daze and turned his head to look at the hospital building outside the window. His mind gradually flew to his mother's side. "I've been waiting for this day. If something really happened to my mother, I'll really tear the heavens apart." Chapter 284. Wu Tong lay in the waiting room of the branch office until 6 o'clock the next morning. She was woken up by her ringtone. When she opened her eyes, she saw that Tang Ying had finally replied. "What's up, D***M woman?" "I'm busy. I'm going into the operating room soon. I turned off my phone last night. I have a major operation today, so I need to rest." Wu Tong dialed Tang Ying's number. Tang Ying seemed to be having breakfast. Before Wu Tong could speak, Tang Ying said, "Let's make a long story short. I have a major operation today and it's a life-threatening one. I'll call you when I'm done." Tang Ying's mouth was stuffed with porridge buns and her words were muffled. She looked very anxious. Hearing that Tang Ying was really busy, Wu Tong knew that her idea of confiding in her best friend was completely dashed. She sighed. "Since you're busy, forget it." "What's wrong? Why are you sighing? This is not like the Wu Tong I know." Tang Ying and Wu Tong had known each other for more than 10 years. They were not biological sisters, but they were closer than that. Hearing Wu Tong's tone, Tang Ying knew that she had something on her mind. Wu Tong did not want to disturb Tang Ying's surgery by talking about her troubles, so she changed the topic. "By the way, what kind of surgery are you going to do? Why do you look so serious? Is it a complicated condition?" On the other side, Tang Ying gulped down a big mouthful of porridge. "It's not complicated. I've done it a few times before, so I'm familiar with it. It's a kidney transplant. But this is my first time being the chief surgeon since returning to China, so I can't take it lightly." Wu Tong's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly remembered that Qin Guang had said last night that his mother would be having a kidney transplant in Wujing City Hospital today. Could it be so coincidental? But on second thought, she realized that it was probably true. A kidney transplant was not a minor operation like an appendectomy. It might not even happen once a month. Is your patient called Feng Rong?" Last time when Qin Guang beat up Pan Jiang, Wu Tong had looked up his family's ID file, and she had already memorized the names of Qin Guang's parents. Tang Ying was shocked. "How did you know?" Wu Tong laughed. "Who do you think I am? Is there anything in Wujing City that I don't know?" Tang Ying rolled her eyes. She had finished her meal, so she put down the bowl and said, "I don't want to waste time with you. I'm off. Talk later." Tang Ying hung up the phone, got up, put on a white coat and walked out of the dorm. Since the day before yesterday, Feng Rong had been under 24-hour surveillance. Now she was finally going to the battlefield. Wu Tong hung up the phone and she felt her head was going to explode. It was only 6 o'clock in the morning, and there were only 2 colleagues on duty in the branch office. As for Wang Long, he had returned home last night when he realized that he couldn't help much. Wu Tong drove her Wrangler out of the police station's parking lot and looked at the Wujing City Hospital not far away. She hesitated for a while before she drove back to Wenxing town. At this moment, Qin Guang was in a fit of rage and had many things to do. So Qin Guang definitely wouldn't be in the mood to listen to his explanation. When the time was right, he would make an excuse to visit Tang Ying in the hospital and create an opportunity for them to meet. At that time, even if Qin Guang is still mad at me, Tang Ying is the chief surgeon who cured his mother. I should at least give her some face, right? Wu Tong knew Tang Ying's medical skills, and she didn't think anything would go wrong with Tang Ying as the chief surgeon. However, when she thought about the fact that she needed Tang Ying to mediate between them, she regretted it. This is all my fault. My brain must have short-circuited. Qin Guang didn't care about what Wu Tong was thinking. He quickly got up, washed up, ate breakfast and went downstairs with his bag. Sun Xiaoshuan stayed downstairs for a long time. He repeatedly scrutinized Qin Guang's movements, and after confirming that Qin Guang didn't notice his little tricks, he gradually calmed down. The two went straight to the hospital without delay. Sun Xiaoshuan wanted to help a lot, but after they arrived at the hospital she could only watch from the side and couldn't help. Qin Guang and Qin Guili had a lot to sign, so Feng Rong didn't allow outsiders to approach. But Sun Xiaoxuan didn't expect to be of any help. She was satisfied just to accompany Qin Guang and wait for her outside. Time flew and it was 9 o'clock. Qin Guang and Qin Guili watched Feng Rong being pushed into the operating room. The door of the operating room was slowly closed. The father and son looked at each other and saw the deep worry in each other's eyes. Qin Guang, Uncle Qin, it will be fine. Dr. Tang is very famous. I found a lot of information about her on the internet. She is really famous. Sun Xiaoxuan walked over with his phone. Qin Guang and Qin Guili knew that it was useless to worry, so they simply sat down together after looking around for a while. 4 hours passed by slowly amidst the torment and waiting. The 4 hours were neither fast nor slow. It started at 9 o'clock in the morning and ended at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. During this period, Qin Guang and Qin Guili stood up and looked outside the operating room many times. They knew that it was useless and they couldn't see anything, but they couldn't control their mood to do such a meaningless thing. Qin Guang was actually quite sleepy at this time, but he couldn't close his eyes at all. He stared at the operating room door. Qin Guang, don't be afraid. It will be fine. Sun Xiaoxuan whispered to him. Qin Guang nodded and then shook his head. I know, but knowing it doesn't mean I can do it. During this period, the door opened several times, and the assistant came out twice to ask Qin Guili to sign. When he signed, Qin Guang and Qin Guili were constantly asking questions. However, the assistant was well versed in communicating with patients. Hence, he only managed to calm the two of them down, but he didn't make things clear. Tang Ying, the only person who could tell the truth to Qin Guang, was the chief surgeon inside and had no time to care about what was happening outside. Lu Fei, Zhong Bai, Wang Qing and the others arrived at about noon. They brought lunch for Qin Guang and the other two and then waited here with them. Finally, it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but the door was still not opened. At this moment, the hearts of Qin Guang and his son started to rise. Sun Xiaoxuan subconsciously grabbed Qin Guang's hand. He was also so nervous that his knuckles turned white. The usual kidney transplant surgery only took 4 hours, and it would only be slower if the surgery was not going well. The father and son looked at each other. Qin Guili said, there won't be any problems, will there? Qin Guang shook his head. No, it shouldn't be. This is the best kidney source. At 1:30, the door of the operating room finally opened. Tang Ying, who looked exhausted, pulled off her mask as she walked out. Qin Guang stood up and ran to Tang Ying. Tang Ying looked up at him and grinned. The surgery was very successful. Along with Tang Ying's smile, the sky and the earth suddenly became clear. The heavy pressure that had been weighing on Qin Guang's heart for nearly a year disappeared at this moment. God has eyes. Hearing Tang Ying's words and seeing the smile on her face, Qin Guang and his son felt that their hearts were about to fly. Chapter 285. But you guys can't go in yet. The patient hasn't completely woken up from the anesthesia, so you'll probably have to wait for a while. After that, there'll be 24 hours of special care. When it's about time, I'll inform you guys to go in. Tang Ying spoke again and patted Qin Guang's shoulder heavily. She then bade farewell to Lu Fei and the others before turning around to head for the office. She was a little tired and needed to rest. After taking 2 steps, Tang Ying turned around again and saw Qin Guang and Qin Guili hugging each other, tears streaming down their faces. The shoulders of the father and son twitched wildly, but they suppressed their voices, not daring to disturb the operation room with loud noises. This past year, the 2 men in this family had shouldered far too much pressure, and they finally vented it all at this moment. They were free. Tang Ying looked at the father and son from afar and couldn't turn around for a long time. When she suddenly came back to her senses, she discovered that there were 2 clear lines of tears on her face. Sun Xiaoxuan looked at Qin Guang and Qin Guang from the side and couldn't hold back his tears either. Qin Guang could only grit his teeth and bear it no matter how hard it was. He never complained to anyone and always put on a cheeky smile in front of others to hide the enormous pressure on his heart and shoulders. This was because he firmly believed that as long as he faced it with a smile, no matter how hard his fate was, it wouldn't force him to the end of the road. Thank the heavens he endured it. This was because hidden under the mischievous appearance was a body that was as hard as iron. Wearing this armor made of iron, it was naturally able to withstand the thousands of cuts of life. In the most difficult time, Lioli appeared in his life with the transcending Holy Grail. Although there were many bumps until now, he still gritted his teeth and endured it with Lioli's help. Lu Fei stood to the side and looked at Qin Guang's almost tearful appearance. She recalled his incomparably domineering and cold-hearted attitude when he was racing. At this moment, the two completely different figures gradually overlapped. A strange emotion surged in the depths of her heart. Sun Xiaoxuan was in an even worse state. If it weren't for the many strangers around them and the fact that Qin Guang and his father were hugging each other and crying, she wouldn't have been able to muster up the courage to do so. Otherwise, she would have rushed forward and hugged Qin Guang tightly. Finally, after waiting for more than 2 hours, Qin Guang and Qin Guili went in with Tang Ying's permission to have a short chat with Feng Rong. The family of three sighed again. On the other side, Lu Fei and Zhong Bai left first because of their respective companies' matters. Wang Qing's physical condition was not very good, so he went back to rest first. Sun Xiaoxuan originally wanted to stay with them, but Qin Guang asked her to go back to school. There was a final exam at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Qin Guang knew that if he didn't study for the exam, he would definitely die. There was no need for Sun Xiaoxuan to accompany him to fail the exam. She didn't want to break her golden record of never failing a subject in university for 4 years. Sun Xiaoxuan didn't care so much about it, but Qin Guang said that his mother must be out of danger now, and there was no possibility of any relapse or rejection, so he had to drive her away. Tang Ying was very puzzled by Qin Guang's absolute confidence. She found an opportunity to quietly call him to her dormitory and asked in private, "Why do I feel that you are more confident than me? Although the donor's kidney is indeed a perfect match, it's my job as a doctor to make a judgment. How can you be so sure?" Tang Ying couldn't help but be curious. If it were any other patient's family, they would be most concerned about the immune rejection at this time. Qin Guili was almost the same. However, ever since the surgery was completed, Qin Guang didn't ask about it from beginning to end. He only expressed his gratitude to her. How could Qin Guang tell her that this kidney was obtained by using the power of fate of the heavenly Holy Grail? Its compatibility was absolutely the best in the world. There was absolutely no way that there would be any problems. Unless the heavenly Holy Grail was filled with water. But that was obviously impossible. He only scratched his head and grinned. Intuition. Intuition my ass. Forget it, I won't argue with you. Anyway, I've done my duty as a friend. Now tell me, how are you going to make up for my shattered self-esteem? Of course, Tang Ying was referring to the fact that Qin Guang didn't want her to be Feng Rong's attending physician. Qin Guang was also embarrassed. I've apologized to you so many times. Why aren't you letting me off the hook? How about this, I'll treat you to a meal some other day. Tang Ying spat at him and tapped his forehead with her finger. Do you think I'm only short of money for a meal? That's right. After all, you're a tycoon who lives in a duplex. So, if our Dr. Tang doesn't mind my young teeth, how about I give my body to you? Qin Guang moved his face forward with a smirk. The distance between the two suddenly became very close. Tang Ying, who was sitting on the chair, looked up at him. Her mind subconsciously recalled the scene when she pinched the thing in his pants. Her face turned red, but she immediately reacted. She sneered and lowered her head to look at Qin Guang's crotch with disdain. It's not that I can't accept your young teeth. After all, although this doctor is older than you by a few years, I'm quite good at taking care of myself. I won't age much faster than you. It's just that if this problem of yours isn't cured, I will never consider you. Hey, you know what I mean. As Tang Ying spoke, a meaningful smile appeared on her face. Qin Guang gasped. He originally wanted to tease this drunk lady, but he didn't expect to be teased instead. Why does she still remember that? Can we still be friends? Hey, let me put it this way. I'm doing your mother's surgery. Maybe you think I'm doing you a big favor, but I don't think so. Your mother is my patient. It's only natural for a doctor to treat a patient. It doesn't count as me repaying you for saving me from being molested. Anyway, I've made up my mind. For a boy of your age, this problem is indeed difficult to talk about. You must be too embarrassed to look for a doctor. I can understand that. So, leave your disease to me. Promise me don't give up on treatment, okay? As Tang Ying spoke, she stood up and patted Qin Guang's shoulder with her right hand. She lowered her head and looked at him with a burning gaze. I really didn't. Qin Guang was about to cry. He was in a good mood today, so much so that he was a little too arrogant. He actually dared to tease this lady. Now he really regretted it. He wished he could eat his own tongue. Trying to explain is equivalent to covering up. I understand. It's also an illness if it's too short and it can be cured. Alright, I'll stop bickering with you. You won't be able to enter the ICU for the next 2 days. I think you should go back to school and take your exams. You won't be of much help here anyway, Tang Ying said as she walked out of the dorm room, leaving Qin Guang alone in the lonely wind. After she opened the door, she turned her head and looked at Qin Guang with a smile. Out of the blue she said, "You've changed." Chapter 286. After Tang Ying walked far away, Qin Guang picked up the heavenly holy grail and drank a mouthful of tea. He lowered his head and caressed the cup, thinking to himself, perhaps she's right, I have indeed changed. In the past, no matter how much he fooled around, there would always be something hidden in his heart that he couldn't get rid of. But from today onwards, Qin Guang knew that he was different from the past. Perhaps he could put it in another way. Could he return to the person he was a year ago? Living a carefree life of the rich generation? But when he thought of this, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. You can be smug all you want, but don't blame this empress for not saying the ugly words first. The power of destiny has already completely helped your mother, and your punishment realm may descend at any time. At this moment, Liuli's voice rang out in his heart. Hey, what do you mean by descending at any time? Can you give me a more precise time? What exactly was the realm of punishment? Can we give you some information in advance? I'm so freaking panicking. Qin Guang asked in a panic. Liuli's figure gradually appeared in his mind. This woman was really frugal. She still didn't wear the lustrous feather dress, and even the white mist that was used to cover her body was reduced to a shrunken version, only covering the most important parts of her body. Even her belly button was exposed. Clearly, after being taken advantage of by Qin Guang last time, she had decided to give up. She shrugged. I can't. Why? Because I don't know what it will be, so I can't tell you either. F***ck. Are you F***king kidding me? A dignified god emperor is so weak? Don't waste your breath. In any case, just deal with the situation as it comes. I can give you a little reminder. Think about it, what is this so-called fate? You touched the fate of your loved ones and obtained benefits. Then how do you think fate will punish you? The more you gain, the more you will lose. You can slowly ponder over this sentence. This old lady won't be accompanying you. After saying that, Liuli's figure gradually faded, intending to escape. What are you going to do? Qin Guang stopped him. Liuli smiled proudly. As the financial steward of the Savior, I have to learn some knowledge. You mortals are really interesting. It's just the principle of bartering, but you call it commerce. There are so many tricks in it. It's really broad and profound. I've never seen anything so interesting in the 10 billion years I've lived in the endless god realm. It's the best way to pass the time. This emperor is leaving. Lori was right. Given her status in the endless divine realm, as the daughter of the master god of chaos, she could have anything she wanted. Even if she occasionally made a deal, it would be nothing more than using something stolen from the master god of chaos to trade for something else. Business was a new field of study for her. This time she really ran away. Qin Guang's face was ashen as he held the cup. He felt his heart ache when he thought of the 183 million in his UBS account. This feeling was basically the same as opening a chicken farm at home and having 700 or 800 weasels living on the mountain next door. It was impossible to guard against and completely hopeless. Should I secretly turn all of it into cash and bury it in the ground? Just as this thought emerged in his mind, Liuli's voice immediately came again. It's useless even if you turn it into cash. I have ways to make you obediently submit. I advise you to be sensible and not force me to use my ultimate move. F***ck. A naked threat. I can't do anything about it. My family's cheat is so high-end. She's actually threatening me. This is so F***king ridiculous. Alright, I admit it. I can indeed return to my old self from a year ago, a carefree, poor second generation. Rich second generation, whatever, just let it go with the wind. When Qin Guang returned to the school dormitory, it was already past 6 in the evening. Lin Jingwei and the others had just finished their exams and were rushing back. Qin Guang also called Sun Xiaoxuan, Gao Ye, and Zhuo Jingxi and booked a table at the elegant pavilion outside the school. Before coming back, he had said that he would treat these few people who knew that he had made a fortune and were the closest to him. At the same time, he would treat it as a celebration of the great success of his mother's surgery. In addition, Qin Guang also planned to drag the whole class to a food stall in Wenxing Town after he finished the remaining 4 environmental physics and modern chemistry exams the day after tomorrow. There was no other way. That was how confident he was when he was rich. It was better to spend some of it before he squandered it all for Liuli. It would be too sad to return to being a pauper without enjoying the life of a rich person. Oh right, since Liuli was burning at least tens of thousands of phone bills every month, he might as well go to the business office later and slap her for $1 million in phone bills. That's right, I'm such a tycoon. I feel uncomfortable if I don't top up $1 million in phone bills every time. Spending money that's about to go down the drain doesn't hurt at all. Alright, the little girl in the business office in town seems to be quite pure. If I top up $1 million in phone bills with her, she will definitely get a lot of commission, right? My sales will also soar, right? I wonder if I can seduce her into throwing herself at me? I'm looking forward to it just thinking about it. Don't talk about feelings with me, just come for my money. Love me hard. As he thought about it, he was almost drooling. Do you guys think Brother Guang's illness is acting up? Why don't we take him to the school hospital? I'm getting goosebumps from seeing him like this. At that moment, Bai Nyangzi's voice rang in his ears. Qin Guang came back to his senses and saw the guy's big face inches away. He quickly got up and pushed him away. Qin Guang said angrily, "Show some respect to a billionaire. Otherwise, I'll make sure that you have no place in the environmental protection industry." What the F***CK? So what if you're rich? I recently started a new book on Chidian Women's Channel. It's very popular and I'm planning to switch to being a writer. Bai Nyangzi was fearless. On the other side, Lin Jingwei was furious. You B***Tisich, did you write the book you asked me to recommend to my cousin a few days ago? The Billionaire Young Master's Cruel Spoiled Wife, Please Love Me 1001 Times? Blarg. What a scary title. Qin Guang and Xiong Jinka couldn't hold it in anymore. Bai Nyangzi's invincible title caused them 10,000 points of damage. Damn it, this grandson has finally embarked on the road of no return, this dead sissy that can't be saved. I'll pay you 100 yuan. Please drag him out and chop him to death. Qin Guang decided to use money to talk. The four of them made a ruckus in the dormitory until Gaoya called to hurry them up. Qin Guang was actually very happy. He knew that the three grandsons in his dormitory were not that kind of ordinary people. Even if they saw him make a fortune in Hong Kong, they could still gather together and laugh happily after coming back. Money was a worldly possession. It was hard to find a good brother in life. In other words, the money that Luli was eyeing was a worldly possession. Brother Guang, you're so rich now. Why don't you help me invest? Let me tell you, you only need to invest 100,000 yuan and help me get an average of 10,000 subscriptions for 3 months. When I become a goddess in the female market, I'll give you half of the copyright fee for the TV series adaptation of my book. I guarantee that you'll earn 2 million yuan. Well, except for Bai Nyangzi. He didn't need a brother like this. Qin Guang and the other two kicked Bai Nyangzi, the new goddess in the female market, into the flower bed. The three of them said in unison, "We'd better break off our friendship with him." Unfortunately, Zhuo Jingxi, who had come to pick up Bai Nyangzi, saw the three of them bullying him. She rushed forward and taught Qin Guang a lesson. "What are you doing? Why are you bullying Bai Fan?" Zhuo Jingxi had the air of a counselor. Qin Guang pointed at Bai Nyangzi and said, "He's been writing a web novel recently. It's for the female market. The title is Billionaire Young Master's Cruel Doting Little Wife, Please Love Me 1001 More Times. What do you think, Teacher Zhuo?" Zhuo Jingxi took a step back. "Please kick him further away. You bunch of inhumane people. You're killing the dream of a young literary man." Bai Nyangzi roared angrily as he watched the four of them walk away. Chapter 287. Qin Guang hadn't been so relaxed in a long time. In the private room of the Qingya Pavilion, he even lifted his ban on alcohol and had all kinds of drinks with Bramble. They had just gotten to know each other. Why wasn't Lin Jingwei and Bai Nyangzi there? That was because the two of them pretended to be dead on the table not long after the fight started. Only Xiong, a fierce tiger by the Mudanjiang River, could keep up with Qin Guang's rhythm. Sun Xiaoshuan wanted to persuade Qin Guang to drink less, but Zhuo Jingxi pulled him back and whispered, "It's okay. He's happy today, so it's okay to drink a little more. He's been holding these things in his heart for a whole year. Now that he's finally free, it's better to drink to release his mood. Otherwise it's very tiring to keep it bottled up all the time." Sun Xiaoshuan nodded, thinking that Teacher Zhuo understood people better. Zhuo Jingxi just smiled as she watched Qin Guang and Xiong compete with each other. She was also filled with emotion. Who would have thought that this inconspicuous guy could drive the scum Wang Ren out of school, shoulder the burden of his family, and quietly leave a miracle in Xiangjiang that countless people would look up to? Gaoya quietly pulled on Sun Xiaoshuan's sleeve and whispered, "Look at the way Teacher Zhuo looks at Qin Guang. Something's wrong." Sun Xiaoshuan rolled his eyes at her. "Don't talk nonsense. Why did you draw a turtle on Lin Jingwei's face?" "I've been learning how to draw comics recently. I saw that his face is quite big, so it's easy to draw." Xiong felt like he had run into a ghost today. Before Qin Guang's family went bankrupt, the four of them often went to the school to drink beer and barbecue. If he remembered correctly, although Qin Guang's alcohol tolerance was good, it was only slightly better than Lin Jingwei and Bai Nyangzi. As the tiger of the northeast, it was not difficult for him to take down 3 people by himself. It was just that it was very tiring to be responsible for carrying 3 people at a time. In the past year, because of Qin Guang's family matters, everyone rarely came out to drink. Qin Guang himself almost didn't drink because he had to drive. Xiong'er never had the chance to show off his superiority in drinking. But what was going on today? Was this guy on steroids or something? His alcohol tolerance was completely unreasonable. Did he become a leaky spoon or a bottomless pit? Cup after cup, he simply couldn't stop. However, he didn't get drunk even after 1,000 cups, and he didn't collapse no matter what. Xiong'er felt that he could not hold on any longer, but he felt that as the god of wine, the more he was in a life-and-death situation, the more he couldn't be a coward and he couldn't stop it. Poor Xiong'er didn't know that Qin Guang had been reborn since a month ago. As the second officer of the En Royal, a veteran pirate famous in the Sea of Time, apart from being able to fight without fear of death, how could his life as a pirate not be stimulated by alcohol? The Sea of Time from the 8th tier of the Heavenly Holy Grail was just that useful, and the effect was just that obvious. Apart from practicing English well for Qin Guang, and leaving behind a body of pirate fighting skills, he also inherited the alcohol tolerance that he had trained by drinking big mouthfuls of hard liquor at sea. It was just that Qin Guang didn't drink much in the past. Finally, Xiong Jinka's head tilted to one side and he fell down. Qin Guang laughed like a victorious general and pointed at Xiong'er's head. Poor weakling. Fight with me? Practice for another 20 years. Save it. You only know how to drink and you don't even know how to pick up food. Won't the table full of dishes be wasted? Won't your stomach hurt? Zhuo Jingxi said as she picked up a piece of crystal twice-cooked pork and put it in Qin Guang's bowl. Although Sun Xiaoshuan told Gao Ye not to talk nonsense, he immediately stuffed a fat crystal pork knuckle into Qin Guang's bowl. At this time, Qin Guang was actually a little drunk, and he couldn't react to the secret confrontation between Sun Xiaoshuan and Zhuo Jingxi. He just ate happily. When they paid the bill and were ready to leave, Lin Jingwei and Bai Nyangzi, who had raised the white flag at the beginning, came back to their senses. Obviously, these 2 guys had rich experience in pretending to be dead at the table. Poor Lin Jingwei, who had been sober the whole time, was forced to endure Gao Ye's graffiti until Gao Ye painted 8 turtles all over his face. It was true love. When the 7 of them returned to the academy, Qin Guang took the lead with Sun Xiaoshuan and Zhuo Jingxi standing by his side to prevent him from suddenly going crazy when he's already 80% drunk from going crazy. Lin Jingwei and Bai Nyangzi carried Xiong Jinka, who was as heavy as Mount Tai with 1 arm on each side. They couldn't wait to throw him to the side of the road. Sun Xiaoshuan pulled Qin Guang, who had tripped with his left foot, and said anxiously, "Slow down, Qin Guang. You are drunk." Drunk? Don't joke, I'm not drunk. This little bit of alcohol is nothing. Back then, when I was on the Shiyu Sea, I drank more than this and I could still rush to someone's boat and kill him. Qin Guang waved his hand, refusing to admit that he was drunk. He picked up his phone and called Wenwen. He really wanted to share his feelings with her at this time. Usually, he would be worried about contacting Wenwen in front of Sun Xiaoshuan and Zhuo Jingxi. But now he didn't think about it at all. It was a pity that Wenwen had already returned to Beijing. Her final exams had ended 2 days earlier, and she had left last night. It seemed that something urgent had happened at home. Qin Guang felt exceptionally regretful. Luckily, before he hung up, Wenwen had added that he would look for her after the results of the CET4 were out. She would not go back on her word. At this moment, Qin Guang's mood instantly turned better. What did you bet with Wenwen? Sun Xiaoshuan, who was beside him, popped his head over and asked. Qin Guang chuckled. Heaven's secrets must not be revealed. The next 2 to 3 days were perhaps the most relaxing and enjoyable days Qin Guang had spent in the past year. Unlike the others who still had to prepare for the environmental physics and modern chemistry foundation exams, Master Guang was decisive from the beginning and did not expect to pass. The kneeling posture of failing the exams was also quite straightforward. This kind of carefree feeling of surrendering before the battle had even begun was something that his comrades who were barely on the verge of failing the exams could not be envious of. B*TCF. We're still sprinting tirelessly, can you not turn on the game? Lin Jingwei and the others protested in all sorts of ways. Qin Guang simply shook his head. Do you guys want me to turn on the stereo and share the happy gaming experience? If you guys plan to take the makeup exams with me when school reopens, I don't mind you guys playing games with me. After waiting for about 2 days, Feng Rong was successfully transferred back to the intensive care unit. Just as Qin Guang had expected, there was almost no immune rejection at all. Even Tang Ying sighed that she had never seen a kidney transplant with such a high compatibility rate. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was a miracle in the history of medicine. In this regard, Qin Guang only smiled and did not say anything. The more amazed the others were, the more scared he felt. The more you gain, the more you lose. These words that Lu Li left for him gradually shrouded his heart in the past 2 days. What exactly will happen? What exactly is waiting for me? I'm so confused. Just as he sat in the ward and let his imagination run wild, an unexpected person walked in. It was Wu Tong. She strode inside and said carelessly, "I say, where are you? Tang Ying, you damn girl, are you done? I've been waiting for you for a long time." Chapter 288. Wu Tong strode into the ward, calling Tang Ying's name. In her heart, she muttered, "Brat, this is a chance encounter that I created with my own hands. You can't stop me from taking advantage of it, can you?" Then, just as she had expected, Qin Guang, Tang Ying, and Feng Rong all turned their heads to look at her in confusion. "Didn't I tell you to wait for me in the office? What are you doing in the ward?" Tang Ying frowned. She felt very puzzled. Wu Tong had come to the hospital to look for her more than once, but she had never barged in when she was making ward rounds with patients. Did she have something urgent to do today? As she spoke, Tang Ying came over and pushed Wu Tong out. She turned to Qin Guang and his mother and said, "Excuse me, this is my good friend Wu Tong." Then Tang Ying immediately whispered in Wu Tong's ear, "Go to my dormitory first. I'll be there in a few minutes. I don't know what's so urgent about you. Don't come to my patient's room." However, Wu Tong used a little strength to stop Tang Ying. It was not easy for her to barge in. How could she be pushed away so easily? Then she turned to look at Qin Guang with a very complicated expression. There was the surprise of a chance encounter, a hint of surprise and a little bit of anxiety. She said, "Qin Guang, why are you here?" In such a short moment she had perfectly acted out her original intention of looking for Tang Ying, but in fact she was here to meet Qin Guang by chance. With such acting skills she could win the Oscar for Best Actress and the Palme d'Or. Qin Guang was really fooled by her. There was a touch of embarrassment on his face. He forced a smile and said, "Hi." He didn't expect that Wu Tong would appear in his mother's ward. What he said to her that day was quite excessive, and it was clear that he wanted to cut ties with her and become a stranger. Qin Guang felt that with Wu Tong's intelligence, it was impossible that she didn't understand his unspoken words. He also knew that with her proud personality, it was almost impossible for her to take the initiative to apologize to him. Over the past few days, Qin Guang occasionally wondered if Wu Tong would come to Wujing City Hospital or the school to look for him. However, she didn't move at all. There was a slight sense of disappointment in her heart, but more than that, she was relieved. Qin Guang told himself that since he had made the decision at that time, he shouldn't regret it. It was a good thing for both Wu Tong and himself. When he realized that Wu Tongzhen was still trapped in the aftereffects of Liuli hypnosis, Qin Guang made up his mind. It was not that he thought highly of himself, but he simply felt guilty towards Wu Tong. This kind of relationship was too unfair to Wu Tong. Qin Guang couldn't get over it. If he accepted this kind of relationship, he would be the most despicable person. As long as he drifted further and further away from her, she would eventually be able to forget him and free herself from Liuli's emotional control. When that day came, they would become strangers. If they could still be friends, it would be good to get to know each other again. If they were destined to become strangers, it would be considered as an explanation to her. However, Qin Guang never expected that he would reunite with her like this. It was completely unexpected. "You guys know each other?" Tang Ying, who was also kept in the dark, first looked at Qin Guang, then turned to look at Wu Tong. Wu Tong nodded. "Yeah, of course we know each other." Qin Guang also nodded and stood up. "Hello, Sister Wu Tong. This is my mom, Feng Rong. Mom, let me introduce you. This is Wu Tong, my..." Before Qin Guang could finish his sentence, Wu Tong had already come up to him and patted his shoulder. She was completely different from how she was when she was quarreling with Qin Guang a few days ago. "Hello, Auntie Feng. Qin Guang hasn't had the time to tell you and Uncle yet, right? He acknowledged me as his sister some time ago." Before the dumbfounded Qin Guang could react, Wu Tong turned around and smiled at Tang Ying. "Hey, what a coincidence. Tang Ying, Qin Guang is the younger brother that I've just acknowledged." Then Wu Tong grabbed Tang Ying and turned to Qin Guang. "You might not believe it, but Miss Ying and I have known each other since elementary school. We are best friends. Qin Guang did not finish his sentence. Wu Tong immediately turned to Feng Rong and smiled sweetly at her. If I had known that Auntie Feng was recuperating here, I wouldn't have come empty-handed. It's all Qin Guang's fault for not telling me the truth. Feng Rong was also very confused. However, Wu Tong's valiant appearance in her police uniform left a very good first impression on her. As it was inconvenient for her to get up, she nodded and smiled at Wu Tong as a greeting. Xiao Wu. Hello. Feng Rong briefly hesitated. She initially wanted to address Wu Tong as Officer Wu, but she was dumbfounded by Wu Tong's familiarity, especially when Wu Tong mentioned that Qin Guang had treated her as his sister. After some pondering, she decided to call Wu Tong as Little Wu. Tang Ying chatted with her in the ward for a few more minutes. After all, she still had other patients to take care of, so she had to leave. Wu Tong completely played the leading role. She chatted with the talkative Feng Rong and helped her peel fruits. In the end, Feng Rong could not eat them, so she stuffed them all to Qin Guang. Up until now, Qin Guang had roughly guessed Wu Tong's thoughts. He thought that she might want to take advantage of this chance encounter to ease their relationship. Never did Qin Guang expect that she would lower herself in such a manner. At this moment, Qin Guang couldn't speak as harshly as he did back then, especially in the ward. Wu Tong was already chatting passionately with her mother, telling how she got to know Qin Guang and Qin Guang once caught a thief, and Qin Guang helped out as a good citizen. Since then, the two became familiar with each other. They felt that they hit it off, so they acknowledged each other as brother and sister. Wu Tong's words were mixed with lies. She said it in front of Qin Guang, which could be considered as helping Qin Guang clean up his mess. She did not mention that he got into a fight at school and sent someone to the hospital, which was completely in line with Qin Guang's wishes. However, Wu Tong came here with the excuse that she had something to discuss with Tang Ying. After sitting for a while, Tang Ying called her after she was done with her work. Wu Tong could only secretly roll her eyes, but had no choice but to leave for the time being. After Wu Tong left, Feng Rong called Qin Guang in front of her and said, "This police sister of yours is quite a nice person." Qin Guang responded helplessly, "Yeah, she's quite nice. By the way, if we really want to acknowledge her as our god sister, we have to meet her family, right?" Feng Rong said again. Qin Guang scratched his head. "Let's not talk about this for now. We youngsters are just joking around, so don't take it seriously. You elders shouldn't get involved." "That's not how you put it. Wu Tong is a 25-year-old police comrade, unlike you who are still ignorant. Since you have acknowledged her as your sister, she must have agreed after careful consideration. You can't think of fooling around. No, when I get out of the hospital, we'll meet her family. It's not a bad idea to become in-laws. I really like her. She reminds me of your real sister." Feng Rong's eyes turned red as she spoke. Qin Guang was stunned. "My real sister?" Chapter 289. Feng Rong nodded. "If she was still alive, she would be 25 years old, right?" Qin Guang felt that something was amiss. Suddenly, Qin Guoli's voice came from behind Qin Guang. He had just finished his surgery. It sounded a little low. He patted Qin Guang's back. "Your mom didn't spout nonsense. It's all my fault for not being able to do anything back then. What's going on?" Qin Guang was baffled. "Actually, there was an older sister before you. Your mom was only 19 years old and she was born with congenital heart disease. Our family was poor and there was no medical care. She died in less than 3 months. It's been so many years and we can't do anything about it. In the past, everyone was poor and the medical care was far from what it is now. It's not just your sister. Many families on the street lost their children just like that. Even if we can't figure it out, we have to. We didn't mention it all these years because we didn't want to feel sad," Qin Guoli said slowly. On the other side, Feng Rong nodded with an indescribable loneliness on her face. Qin Guoli quickly went forward to comfort her. "It's been so long. You just had an operation. Don't let it affect your emotions." Feng Rong nodded. "I know. I just couldn't hold it in." After that, she raised her head and looked at Qin Guang. "I really like Wu Tong and this is fate." Feng Rong explained Wu Tong's background to Qin Guoli. Qin Guoli thought it was a good idea. Although Qin Guang seemed unreliable most of the time, the couple had always trusted his judgment. Qin Guang had taken the initiative to ask someone else to be his sister, and Wu Tong was a police officer and likable. It was a good idea for them to become in-laws. Of course, to Qin Guoli, Feng Rong was the main reason. As long as his wife liked her, he would support her unconditionally. Seeing that the two of them were getting more serious, Qin Guang was helpless and could only bite the bullet. He first searched for news about Wu Tong's father, Wu Shan, and handed it over. Take a look at this. Forget it. Wu Tong and I were really just casually talking about it. This is her father. Who do you think he is? How could he become our godson so easily? The two elders read the news about Wu Shan word by word and sighed again. The thoughts of the older generation were much more worldly than those of Qin Guang. Even without Qin Guang's explanation, the two of them knew that it was impossible once they saw Wu Shan's identity. It didn't matter what the youngster said in private, but if it involved the adults with the other party's status, he really couldn't get close to them. What a pity. Feng Rong sighed. Qin Guoli also said, yeah, what a pity. Qin Guang couldn't bear to see the two of them moaning and groaning. He got up and found a random reason to go outside to talk to Wu Tong. He thought that although his parents understood Wu Tong's family background and knew that it was impossible for them to become in-laws, Wu Tong still had to explain herself if he wanted them to stop feeling regretful over this kind of thing. Back then, she had said the joke in front of his mother, and even made his mother fall in love with him because of his biological sister, who had passed away, which he didn't know about. He couldn't just ignore it. Up until now, Qin Guang really thought that it was purely a chance encounter. Perhaps Wu Tong really felt apologetic about what happened that day, so when she saw him, she made such a prompt decision to ease their relationship. But the more Wu Tong showed that she cared about Qin Guang, the more uncomfortable Qin Guang felt. The root of the matter was because of Liuli's god-level hypnosis. She said that emotional control was better than mental control, but in the end, the repercussions were so severe. If he had known that this day would come, Qin Guang would never have agreed to emotional control. Now he couldn't figure out how he should get along with Wu Tong. Although they were friends, she seemed to be more than friends but not lovers. Although they had feelings between a man and a woman, it was impossible to erase the hypnosis that made her fall in love with him for a short period of time. In fact, Qin Guang secretly felt that even ordinary friendship couldn't get rid of the influence of that hypnosis. Otherwise, why would Wu Tong treat him so differently when she had interacted with so many people? Qin Guang looked up at the sky and sighed. I didn't want to be pretentious, but I had no choice but to be pretentious in this situation. He couldn't get over it, especially when Wu Tong actually took the initiative to humble herself after seeing him, which made him feel even more apologetic. On the other hand, Tang Ying thought that Wu Tong really had something important to do, so she hurriedly finished her work and returned to the dormitory. From the beginning, Wu Tong came for Qin Guang, so how could she really find anything important to tell Tang Ying? After being asked again and again, she had no choice but to beat around the bush. However, the more Wu Tong tried to be secretive, the more Tang Ying took it seriously, and the more she thought that she really had encountered some big trouble that she couldn't talk about. Tang Ying was almost driven mad by Wu Tong's taiji fist. Finally, she flipped out. I say, what are you doing? I thought you had something important, but you didn't say anything? Are you trying to suffocate me to death? Wu Tong's head was full of bumps from Tang Ying's interrogation. She regretted it so much that her intestines turned green. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have barged into the ward. She should have sat in her office and waited for Qin Guang to walk into the trap. Seeing her bashful look, Tang Ying said anxiously, what is it? Just say it. It's definitely not about watching a movie or something like that. Don't try to fool me. You can't be pretending to look for me but you're actually looking for Qin Guang, right? As soon as the words came out of her mouth, something flashed across Tang Ying's mind. She pretended to be enlightened. Oh yeah, didn't you ask me on the phone the other day if the patient's name was Feng Rong? You should have known about it long ago. Why do you look like you don't know about it at all today? What's going on? Wu Tong didn't expect Tang Ying to be so quick-witted and expose her in an instant. How could she admit that she had a conflict with Qin Guang in front of her best friend and that she was here to admit defeat? She stubbornly said, what nonsense are you talking about? It's really a coincidence. I know that Qin Guang's mother's name is Feng Rong. I bumped into him by chance when I came to your place last time. He said that he brought his mother to the hospital for a minor illness. I just said it subconsciously that day. Who would have thought that I would actually guess it correctly? Fine. You can say whatever you want. I can't be bothered to argue with you. I'm not as free as a third-generation heir like you. You can do whatever you want. I'm going back to work. At this point, Wu Tong still refused to admit it. She only said it was a coincidence. Tang Ying had no choice but to roll his eyes and leave. Hearing the door open, Qin Guang, who was eavesdropping on the conversation outside the dormitory, dodged and hid in the corridor next to him. With his back against the wall, Qin Guang was at a loss. Tang Ying couldn't figure it out, but Qin Guang immediately understood. Wu Tong had come to look for him on purpose today. The so-called coincidence was just her doing it on purpose. She just wanted to create an opportunity for herself to appear in front of him. Why did you do this? Chapter 290. Why are you here? While Chen Guang was still in a daze, Wu Tong appeared at the entrance of the corridor. She saw Chen Guang leaning against the wall with a desolate look on his face. As soon as their eyes met, they vaguely understood each other's thoughts. Wu Tong was frightened by the apologetic look in Chen Guang's eyes. In fact, she would rather Chen Guang still be enraged than to see him apologetic. She didn't want an apology from Chen Guang at all. She just wanted forgiveness because she knew that she was in the wrong that day. But why is he looking at me apologetically? Why is he apologetic? Of course, it's because he still wants to keep her at arm's length. I heard what you said to Sister Tanging just now. You don't have to be like this. Chen Guang blushed and turned his face away. He didn't want to see Wu Tong's flustered look. What? You heard everything? Wu Tong's face turned red in an instant. She thought, what should I do now? It wasn't easy for me to create this chance encounter, and now I've ruined it. How embarrassing. She couldn't help but feel helpless and her ears were burning. Seeing her like this and thinking that she had deliberately created this chance encounter, Chen Guang's heart was almost swallowed by shame. He said, let's forget about what happened that day. I've reflected on myself. My attitude was too bad. If I had calmed down and explained it to you, things wouldn't have turned out this way. I'm sorry. Wu Tong came back to her senses and waved her hands anxiously. No. It's my fault. Chen Guang, listen to me. Wu Tong didn't want to give him a chance to speak again. She continued like a machine gun. I really didn't know what happened that day. If I had known that your mother was going to have such a big operation, I definitely wouldn't have pestered you endlessly. Yes, I know my behavior at that time seemed ridiculous. I was indeed pestering you endlessly. But I don't know why did it turn out like this? Chen Guang shook his head. You really don't have to blame yourself. Wu Tong continued to ask, so you can forgive me? Chen Guang really couldn't stand her being so humble. He felt that it was simply torturing himself. There's nothing to forgive or not. I can't explain it clearly to you. You were in that situation because of me, but I really can't explain it. So I forget it. Anyway, I don't blame you, don't be like this. She doesn't look like the Wu Tong I know. So you still recognize me as your sister? He finally relented. Wu Tong heaved a sigh of relief and looked at him expectantly. Chen Guang was defeated by the look in her eyes. Even if he felt that something was wrong, he really couldn't say anything hurtful. He could only continue to nod. Yes, of course I recognize you as my sister. Although he said that, in his heart, Chen Guang was thinking that he should deal with her first. He really couldn't see her like this. Anyway, he would agree to it today and contact her less in the future. Slowly their relationship would fade, wouldn't it? Suddenly, when he said that he recognized her as his sister, his heart inexplicably palpitated. An extremely strong sense of crisis suddenly appeared, but it flashed and then disappeared without a trace. When he came back to his senses, Chen Guang actually felt that his back was drenched in sweat at that moment. What the hell is going on? Chen Guang, who had never had such an experience, couldn't help but wonder if he was sick. The terrifying feeling of falling into a great crisis came without warning. It was extremely sudden, and the key point was that he didn't even know what the situation was. Do I have a mental illness? Intermittent mental disorder? Chen Guang was extremely puzzled. Chen Guang, what's wrong with you? Are you not feeling well? Wu Tong was also startled by Chen Guang's sudden change in complexion. She went over and placed her hand on Chen Guang's forehead to see if he had a fever. Chen Guang shook his head. I'm fine. I'm a little not used to your polite manner, ha. He laughed it off and managed to fool her. Wu Tong's mood completely turned from gloomy to sunny. And it's good that you're fine. I've finally talked things through with you. I'm also free from worries. All of a sudden I feel a lot more relaxed. Actually, I'm not used to speaking so politely with you. Ah. She said proudly as she patted Chen Guang's shoulder. Right, I still have a while before I go on patrol. I didn't see your dad just now. Let's go back and sit for a while. Wu Tong said again as she pulled Chen Guang back. After a few steps she stopped, turned around and asked tentatively, right, there's really nothing between you and Sun Xiaoxuan, right? Chen Guang had a headache. Nothing at the moment, but I can't say for sure in the future. Sun Xiaoxuan is a good person and I quite like her. Wu Tong's expression changed slightly, but she quickly controlled her mood. She put her hand on Chen Guang's shoulder and put her arm around his back. You're still young and you're not mature enough in terms of feelings. Don't casually make a decision to harm other girls. You have to be responsible for yourself and also for others. This kind of thing, as your older sister, I have to help you check," she said righteously, but in her heart, she had already cursed herself like a pig. "Wu Tong, what the hell are you thinking in your head?" Chen Guang really wanted to tell her directly that her older sister's so-called checking should be replaced with stealing, right? But in the end he didn't say it because he knew that Wu Tong wouldn't admit it. "Right, how did you practice your acting skills? I was completely fooled by you before, and I thought it was a coincidence that you came to find me." In order to prevent her from being too arrogant, Qin Guang decisively decided to expose her scars first. Unexpectedly, he underestimated Wu Tong's shamelessness. As long as he talked it out with him and returned to his normal state, Wu Tong would not be caught by his little tricks. Instead of feeling ashamed, he proudly raised his eyebrows and said, "If you study criminal psychology properly, I guarantee that you will be able to learn what I just did without a teacher." "Is that so?" Qin Guang thought of his disastrous acting skills again, and he was a little shocked. The two returned to the ward, and Wu Tong met with Chen Guoli again. Although Feng Rong had fallen asleep, Chen Guoli was more talkative than Qin Guang. The two chatted as if they regretted not meeting each other earlier, which made Qin Guang's eyelids twitch in fright. When Wu Tong finally left, Chen Guoli's thoughts were exactly the same as Feng Rong's, who was sleeping. "Alas, it's really a pity. She's older than you by 5 years, or else it would be nice to marry her." Qin Guang rolled his eyes. "If I remember correctly, Dad, you know that I'm Jiang Ye's mistress, right? That day when Sun Xiaoxuan came, you also thought it was good. Today Wu Tong came and you can't make her your goddaughter, but you want her to become your daughter-in-law? You should consider your son's physical condition. Right, I have a prescription here. It's the super powerful tonic soup I mentioned last time. You take a look first, and when your mother's body is more stable, I plan to cook it for you. No wonder you're not worried. You're prepared for it." On the other side, Wu Tong happily drove out of the hospital parking lot. Although she still felt that Qin Guang was a little worried, it didn't matter. Wu Tong firmly believed that the guy was not a stingy person, and it would be fine as long as she told him everything. "That's right, you can't blame it all on me. You hid such a big thing in your family from me, humph." Qin Guang stayed in the hospital for about half an hour, and he planned to drive back to school. Tomorrow was the official summer vacation for the environmental science class, and the nouveau riche's treating had to be tonight. Before leaving, he glanced at the heavenly holy grail on the cup holder in the car, and for some reason he remembered the feeling of palpitation just now. "I hope nothing big happens." Chapter 291. Everyone in the class knew that Qin Guang had gone out to earn a lot of money, but no one knew how much he had earned except for his third grandson and Sun Xiaoxuan's two best friends. Qin Guang didn't need to tell them to keep it a secret. They all knew that Qin Guang didn't want everyone to know. 100 million was still too much for an ordinary university student. If it really got out, it wouldn't take more than half a day for the whole school to be in an uproar. University students were still students. If any of them succeeded in starting a business and earned millions a year, they would be idolized by their peers in the school, not to mention Qin Guang, who had earned nearly 200 million in a few days. No matter how the money came about, the winner takes all. He had done it, and that was his capability. Qin Guang felt that when the time came, no one knew how many juniors would be waiting outside his dorm, or trying to create all kinds of coincidental encounters to get to know him, throwing themselves into his arms one after another. No kidding, 200 million in cash, a pure diamond bachelor, a master of winning by lying down, winning at the starting line of life and struggling for 100 years less. Thinking about that scene, it was simply awesome. To be reasonable, secretly finding a chance to pretend that he had accidentally spilled the beans was not a bad idea. Qin Guang let everyone eat and drink to their heart's content. After all, it was impossible to eat until he became poor. Almost everyone in the class came, even the group of people who had conflicts with him because of Pan Jiang and Wang Ren were here. Only Ren Yuan was missing, but no one cared about him. Qin Guang didn't mind that these people appeared at the table. They came to him humbly, so he didn't need to lower himself to their level and lower his status for no reason. Qin Guang also drank quite a bit. That day when he defeated Xiong'er's third grandson, he didn't drink to his heart's content. He only recovered a little bit of the state he had in the Sea of Moments. Today he was the star of the show, so of course he didn't reject anyone. After 3 rounds of drinking, Qin Guang was getting a little tipsy. He remembered that he needed to top up his phone. Coincidentally, the food stall was right next to Wenxing Town's largest business hall. Hence, Qin Guang greeted everyone before he walked over with a shake of his head. Sun Xiaoshuan hurriedly caught up to him and asked what he was going to do. The rich old Master Guang waved his hand. The old man is going to top up his phone. All right, sit down. I'll help you recharge with PayPal. How much do you want to charge? Sun Xiaoshuan pulled him back to sit down again. Qin Guang did not even think about it. Help me top up, 1 million yuan. The 7 or 8 people sitting at the table were silent. Even Sun Xiaoshuan and Gao Ye, who knew he was super rich, looked at him as if he was an idiot, let alone the others. Idiot, even if you're drunk, you shouldn't act like this, right? The people at the next table who didn't know each other started to complain first. Usually, at a time like this, there was no need for Qin Guang and the others to say anything. What would happen next was obvious. Immediately, Lin Jingwei and Bai Nyangzi, who drank the least, turned their gazes to where Xiong'er was sitting. *CK. He's already gone. Brother, your behavior is super simple. Xiong'er, the walking firecracker in human form, had already appeared in front of the people at the table. His desire to fight was 10 times stronger than that of a fighting race. Can you King say one more word? Do you believe I won't beat you to death? Xiong'er's breath reeked of alcohol. His face was red as he stood by the table, panting with rage. He waved his fists as he spoke, already in a pre-battle state. He was a big guy with a thick back and a bear's waist. Coupled with his half-drunk image, he was overbearing and had the ability to magnify aggro. He was the perfect choice for a main tank to pull aggro. The people in front of him were also tough. Faced with Xiong'er's provocation, they didn't back down at all. They slammed the table and stood up. What, you want to fight? I don't want to fight. I want to fight. Mother *Kurs, you started the fight first and now you're King arrogant? As Bramble spoke, he lifted his foot and flipped the table of these people. The sparse barbecue and beer bottles scattered all over the floor. The faces of the 4 people darkened, and one of them took a step back with a bad temper. He reached behind his back and unexpectedly pulled out a dagger with a swish. Idiot student, can't you see what's going on? Brother Scar and Eyeglasses Wu are in their cells. I, your brother, have the final say in Wenxing town. The person said and really did pull out a dagger to slash at Xiong'er's arm. Xiong'er was already a bit drunk. His reaction was a beat slower. He wanted to retreat, but it was already too late. The dagger was about to slash at his hand. A black shadow suddenly jumped out from beside him, grabbed the person's wrist and twisted it. The person screamed and the dagger fell out of his hand. The black shadow caught the dagger with his other hand and slashed at the guy's thigh, drawing a finger-long wound as deep as a fingernail. In an instant, the brother, who was acting cool just a moment ago, screamed and held his thigh as he shrank back. This black shadow was none other than Qin Guang. Qin Guang pushed Xiong'er back with his right hand. You go back first. Qin Guang didn't seem to use much force, but he pushed the tall and strong Xiong'er back. *CK. Fine. The other 3 saw their boss was slashed and they were about to jump up with a weird scream. Qin Guang kicked the ground with the tip of his foot and a chair flew up. He grabbed the chair with his right hand in midair and slammed it down on the head of the second person who jumped at him. With a loud bang, wood splinters flew everywhere, and the wooden chair was broken into pieces. In an instant, another person fell. From the time Qin Guang made his move to injuring 2 people, it only took 5 seconds. Everyone was dumbfounded for a moment. On the other side, the 20 or so boys in the environmental engineering class gathered around him. No matter what happened, since they were fighting, they had to stand together. The 4 people were suddenly surrounded and they began to panic. The other 2 who didn't have time to make a move didn't dare to move. You don't mess around. You're just students, think carefully. On the towns? The person whose thigh was slashed by Qin Guang covered the wound with his hand and said hurriedly. But before he finished, Qin Guang put the dagger in front of his nose. I know what you want to say. You're some kind of gang leader, right? Who the *CK are you? Why don't you ask around and find out how Brother Scar and Glasses Wu got into the cell you were talking about? To tell you the truth, I single-handedly took down more than a dozen of them at the streetlight in front of us. I was the one who called the police. When the police came, they saw the police as their savior, you understand? Chapter 292. Although he felt that Qin Guang was spouting nonsense, the man who had his leg cut looked at Qin Guang's murderous gaze, the bloody dagger in front of his nose, and especially the murderous aura coming from Qin Guang. He had no choice but to believe it. It wasn't that Qin Guang was trying to scare him. Just as he said when he first boarded the ship in the Sea of Transient, he was just a servant. If he dared to hide at the back when fighting, he would get his neck chopped off by his own people first. At first he was also afraid. If he didn't drink some wine to boost his courage, how would he be able to charge forward? Before boarding the ship, he would drink from time to time and then rush forward with his machete. Relying on his ability to revive, he risked his life. Otherwise, how could he have become the second officer of the Annie in just half a year? Today he drank some wine and got a little tipsy. The other party actually pulled out a knife without saying a word. If it wasn't for his swift actions, Xiong-er would probably be lying on the ground bleeding. How could Qin Guang not be angry? It was true that Xiong-er flipped the table first, but if it wasn't for their rude words earlier, why would Xiong-er go over? Of course, the so-called right or wrong wasn't important. In the pugilistic world, the most outstanding thing was to help one's kin and not reason. Therefore, Qin Guang didn't hesitate to make a move. At this moment he had a weapon in his hand and he saw blood. If he wasn't careful, he would completely return to the Sea of Transient, and he wanted to smell some blood. With Qin Guang pointing a knife at his nose, this brother completely panicked. He was really afraid that Qin Guang would rush to his head and thrust the knife forward. Wouldn't that stab through his nose and into his brain? Bro, I was wrong. Qin Guang looked at him expressionlessly. Wrong? I don't think you did anything wrong. After all, I hurt you quite badly. How many people do you plan to find for revenge? Sun Xiaoxuan wanted to pull Qin Guang from behind, but because Qin Guang's dagger was too close to Qin Guang, Sun Xiaoxuan was afraid that he would accidentally push Qin Guang's hand forward, so he didn't dare to exert force. Brother, don't be rash. I won't take revenge. You really didn't want to take revenge. I've been injured many times worse than this. Now that I know you've defeated Brother Scar and Eyeglasses Wu, how could I not be happy with you? By the way, I bought this saber for more than 800 yuan. I also have a scabbard here. The workmanship is quite exquisite. Take it as a greeting gift. Let's just forget about this? What if the situation is not good? A decisive coward. No explanation. Once you're scared, don't even think about trying to save face and suffer. I'm a coward to the end. If you don't like it, then come and hit me. As long as they didn't beat him to death. These Jianghu brothers of Wenxing Town had been oppressed by Brother Knife Scar and Glasses Wu for a few years, and they had their own philosophy of life. Now was the chance to train their troops for 1,000 days and use them for a single moment. Qin Guang grinned. It's good that you know what's good for you. This matter was over for the time being. But Qin Guang didn't let them leave immediately. He only asked them to call 120 and wait for the ambulance. He grabbed one of the two who could still move and forced him to accompany him to the business office. Watch carefully. Watch how I top up my phone. I said 1 million, so it's 1 million. This time, Sun Xiaoxuan couldn't stop them. He dragged them to the business office, where Qin Guang took out his black card and topped up the phone on the spot. Then he dragged them back. Qin Guang waved his phone. Now do you still think I'm pretending? No. The four of them shook their heads like a rattled drum. Get lost. Qin Guang waved his hand and they ran away in fear. Sun Xiaoxuan couldn't help but say that he was being wasteful. By now, Qin Guang had sobered up quite a bit from the alcohol, so he explained to Sun Xiaoxuan, Sai, it's hard for me to explain in a few words. My phone bill is tens of thousands a month. Maybe my 1 million will be gone in less than a year. How is that possible? You have to follow the basic rules even if you want to burn your phone bill. Everyone exclaimed. Qin Guang sighed again. Sai, it's really hard to explain in a few words. Can I tell you that in the time we took to brag over a meal, a certain someone hiding in the cup at the dinner table had already finished talking about an entire episode of a TV series? That's right. About half an hour ago, perhaps Lioli was too engrossed in the TV series and accidentally leaked some audio, which made Qin Guang realize a tragic fact. Lioli, this woman, had actually started watching The Big Time, halfway through learning about business. Hey, although that was a classic business war film, doing business in real life was different from doing business in the TV series. Moreover, even if The Big Time really had some business methods, that was a TV series that was released in 1992, alright? 24 years had passed since then, alright? The price of pork had increased by 6 times, alright? Could the business methods of the past still be used now? Qin Guang wouldn't explain it to the others, so they didn't insist on asking him. But after this incident, although the others in the class still didn't know how much money he had, just from the fact that he had recharged 1 million a month, they knew that he had really struck it rich. Quite a few girls in the class looked at Qin Guang in a different light. He was definitely a mobile human ATM. One really couldn't blame the girls for being tacky. Qin Guang's popularity in the class wasn't low to begin with. Although everyone could tell that Sun Xiaoxuan had feelings for him, the two of them weren't really a couple after all. Even if they were married, they could still get a divorce. The two of them hadn't even confirmed their relationship, so what they were doing couldn't even be considered as poaching. It was only natural that everyone who saw it had a share. The one who struck first had the advantage and the one who struck last had to suffer. What happened next wasn't hard to understand. One after another, the girls gathered around Qin Guang. Even Xiong Er and Bai Nyangzi were pried open. As for Lin Jingwei, he was in charge of restraining Gao Ye. Seeing that Qin Guang had become a hot commodity, Sun Xiaoxuan, who had been sitting opposite Qin Guang in a reserved manner, panicked. However, it was already too late for her to move to get a seat. Two other girls had already sat down on either side of Qin Guang. Qin Guang, ever since I entered university, I felt that you weren't an ordinary guy. Although I don't know what you've been up to, let's have a drink. I wish you all the best. I've never drunk alcohol before. You have to drink this glass of wine. The girl sitting on the left side of Qin Guang was the first to attack. She raised her glass and moved closer to Qin Guang, pressing her full breasts against him. The two mountains in front of her chest clamped Qin Guang's left arm, one on the left and the other on the right. It was like a ham sausage in a hot dog bun. It launched a crazy attack on Qin Guang's rationality and character. Although this girl wasn't as cute as Sun Xiaoxuan, and her appearance couldn't be considered a stunning beauty, about 7 or 8 out of 10, her figure was really not bad. She could be considered a beauty whose back view was a 9 out of 10. Suddenly being attacked, Qin Guang suddenly froze. He thought that money was too scary. If he couldn't resist it even though they had been classmates for 3 years, those unfamiliar senior sisters and junior sisters must be no better. Chapter 293. Ding Wan. Qin Guang has drunk enough today. Don't ask him to drink any more. Looking at how Ding Wan dared to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, Sun Xiaoxuan gnashed his teeth in hatred. At the same time, he inwardly cursed Ding Wan for being so unrestrained to actually make a move on Qin Guang in front of so many people. At the same time, he was envious of Ding Wan's boldness. Why don't I have such thick skin? Hu Qi, the girl sitting on the right of Qin Guang, also didn't want to be outdone. She wrapped her arms around Qin Guang from the other side and said, I want to drink too. I want to drink too. The crossfire was thick. Qin Guang began to giggle. Although he knew he should push the two away to maintain his righteous image, please let me enjoy a few more seconds. Feels so good, bang. Sun Xiaoxuan, who was sitting across from Qin Guang, slammed the table. He was furious. Ding Wan and Hu Qi were stunned at first, but they immediately formed a united front. Class president, what do you mean? Ding Wan still didn't let go of Qin Guang. Hu Qi also pressed down harder and harder. To be asterisk cheese. Sun Xiaoxuan cursed in his heart. Aren't you two a little too much? In the past, when Qin Guang was poor, he said behind his back that people who study while driving sports cars would become useless if they didn't go to class. Now that he's rich, he's trying to get close to us. Isn't that too much? Seeing that Sun Xiaoxuan was about to lose, Gao Ye came over. She was much fiercer than the mild-mannered Sun Xiaoxuan. She pointed at the two girls and yelled. In fact, she was already being polite. Gao Ye, what nonsense are you talking about? When did we say anything about Qin Guang behind his back? Don't slander us. Besides, we're Qin Guang's classmates. Why can't he drink with us? Haven't we all known each other for 3 years? Are you saying that the class president is in charge of everything? That we can control who we want to be close to? Hu Qi's fighting ability was not for nothing. Unlike Sun Xiaoxuan's elegance, she had changed at least 4 or 5 boyfriends during her 3 years in university. She was very familiar with this kind of jealousy tactic. Ding Wan and Hu Qi were about the same. Neither of them were easy to deal with. If they weren't experienced, they wouldn't have the guts to put their ideas into action. Ding Wan rolled her eyes. That's right. Hu Qi is right. You think you're so great just because you're the class monitor? Gao Ye, forget it. Stop it. Sun Xiaoxuan pulled Gao Ye back. He didn't want her to continue talking in front of others. Bah. Don't try to use your status as the class leader to embarrass me. This was not a scholarship, nor was it an outstanding student selection. You can't just give in to everything. If you talk nonsense again, I'll tear your mouths apart. Gao Ye did not want to be outdone. Sun Xiaoxuan was so anxious that his face turned red, but he could not stop her. The development of the situation was really unexpected. Qin Guang didn't even have time to react before it became like this. He could only blame the girls for being too strong. In just 10 seconds they had come up with so many tricks. He still hadn't come back to his senses. Truth be told, Qin Guang didn't have any intentions of doing anything with the girls in his class. At this moment he just drank a little too much, and the benefits that came to him came too suddenly, causing him to lose his composure. Sun Xiaoxuan, who was sitting across from him, slammed the table. It looked like he was getting mad at the two girls, but in fact he was trying to scare away Qin Guang's drunkenness. His drunkenness had subsided, and his mind was sober. How could he not know which was more important? All right. Stop talking. It's fate that we're classmates. Let's not get into a fight over such a small matter. I drank a little too much today and my brain short-circuited. I went too far with my jokes. Too far. Qin Guang hurriedly struggled out of Ding Wan and Hu Qi's attacks, and then stood next to Sun Xiaoxuan. He didn't know how to deal with the situation, so he could only smile apologetically at Ding Wan and Hu Qi. We're classmates, but we can't make jokes like this again. Otherwise, if your boyfriends find out, I'll be in serious trouble. He just said it casually to help himself out. He didn't expect that Ding Wan and Hu Qi's expressions would change, and they looked a little embarrassed. Oh my god. You two really have boyfriends? Do your boyfriends know that you two are so cool? Do you think I'll be hacked to death by you guys? I can't take the blame for this. It's just a joke. Don't think that I'm really interested in you. Ding Wan quickly waved her hands to disassociate herself, and Hu Qi quickly laughed. After being pointed out by Qin Guang, the others roughly understood what he meant. Especially when Qin Guang sat next to Sun Xiaoxuan, his attitude was even more obvious. Seeing this, the others could only secretly regret missing the opportunity. Of course, just based on looks, temperament and personality, no girl in the class could really challenge Sun Xiaoxuan. Sun Xiaoxuan was happy, but he didn't say it out loud. Gaoya took the opportunity to pull Sun Xiaoxuan aside. You see? He's actually still on your side. Why don't you strike while the iron is hot and talk things out with him? That way there won't be so many vixens who keep thinking about him. Let me tell you, it's easy for a girl to pursue a guy, especially Qin Guang. He hasn't had a girlfriend in his 3 years in university, and I bet he's been thirsty for a long time. If there really is a vixen who doesn't play by the rules and only wants to get on first, you'll regret it in the future. Sun Xiaoxuan looked at Qin Guang, who didn't dare to drink anymore and only ate his barbecue. He hesitated and said, I'm a little scared. What are you scared of? Gaoya had an attitude that said, if you can do it, then do it. If you don't, then you're not a good girl. Although Sun Xiaoxuan was a little tempted, she still said timidly, I'm afraid he'll have scruples and won't say yes. Gaoya pushed her, don't joke around. I don't believe a normal man would say no to you. Go. Ding Wan and Hu Qi, both of whom have boyfriends, are still pestering him. Why are you scared? Sun Xiaoxuan shook her head slightly. I'm different from them. Different? What's different? Gaoya frowned. She didn't quite understand what Sun Xiaoxuan meant. After thinking about it for a while, she suddenly understood. Don't tell me you're still a virgin? Oh my god. Sun Xiaoxuan blushed. What's so surprising about that? Gaoya nodded. That's right. You've never been in a relationship. Besides, this is really troublesome. Men's minds were very strange. If a girl like Ding Wan, who kept changing boyfriends, went to hook up with him, he might happily eat her up as if she was a dish delivered to his doorstep. But if the one who was sent to him was a virgin, he would have all kinds of misgivings in his heart. Let's not talk about those born bad guys, but Qin Guang is definitely not that kind of person. Sun Xiaoxuan nodded. That's what I'm afraid of. Oh, from your tone, you don't seem to be one anymore? Gaoya raised her eyebrows proudly. I just got promoted a few days ago. Lin Jingwei? Of course. Who else could it be? That simple? Gaoya nodded. That's simple. Chapter 294. Did he promise to marry you? Sun Xiaoxuan couldn't help but envy Gaoya. Gaoya shook her head. I haven't thought about the future yet. I might not even be willing to marry him. Alright, let's not think about it anymore. Today is a rare opportunity and we'll have to go home soon. We'll have to wait for 2 months to see each other again. If you don't make things clear now, I'm guessing he'll get us a sister-in-law that we won't even know after the summer vacation. Gaoya continued, by the way, don't tell him about being a virgin yet. You can test his attitude first. If he really cares, I have a very ruthless way. What? Gaoya's face turned fierce, her eyes glinting. You ruined the cucumber first. Don't lie to him that you're not a virgin anymore. Wait until he's satisfied, then find a chance to make things clear. If you're afraid he'll be unhappy, keep him in the dark. To tell you the truth, I've never had that thing. When I was a kid I rode a bicycle and lost it. I was afraid that Lin Jingwei wouldn't believe me, but it turns out he doesn't care at all. This. Sun Xiaoxuan gasped. Gao Ye's plan was so cunning. Go. Be brave and pursue your happiness. Don't be afraid of failure. Failure is the mother of success. Think about how pitiful and persistent the boys who wrote you love letters were. Borrow some of their perseverance and courage for yourself. Gao Ye pushed Sun Xiaoxuan, pushing her back again. Sun Xiaoxuan blushed and slowly moved towards Qin Guang. She was very concerned about what Gao Ye had said. She was going back to Wuming City for the summer vacation and wouldn't be by his side for as long as 2 months. She couldn't predict what would happen during those 2 months. She was afraid that he would be seduced by someone else. In the past, Sun Xiaoxuan wouldn't have been so worried. But recently, Qin Guang seemed to have a lot of luck with women. Not to mention his nemesis Wenwen, teacher Zhua, the lady who accompanied him to Xiangjiang, and the beautiful officer Wu who acted strangely at the hotel that night. No matter who it was, they were all terrible potential competitors. Finally, Sun Xiaoxuan stood behind Qin Guang. Lin Jingwei, who was chatting with Qin Guang, was the first to notice Sun Xiaoxuan's ghost-like figure. He turned around to see Sun Xiaoxuan's flushed face under the night light, then looked at Ye, who was winking at him from afar. Lin Jingwei poked Qin Guang's waist, signaling him to turn around. Qin Guang sat on the stool and turned his head. He still didn't know that something good was about to happen. He only tore off a large piece of roasted and fragrant pork tenderloin from the barbecue skewer and said with a smile, "Class monitor son, why aren't you coming over to eat something? The vegetarian dishes that you girls love to eat are almost all gone." "Qin Guang, you come here for a moment." Sun Xiaoxuan's voice was as low as a mosquito's. She used her fingers to pinch the shoulder of Qin Guang's t-shirt and pulled him up. "Strange," Qin Guang muttered in his heart. He picked up his cup and followed Sun Xiaoxuan to a corner of the food stall. He drank tea as he walked. The barbecue tasted a little salty today and his mouth was dry. Looking at Sun Xiaoxuan's back as she carefully walked in front of him, it seemed that she was so nervous that her legs were trembling. Qin Guang couldn't help but think, what on earth does she want? He pondered in his heart, is she going to confess to me directly? This doesn't feel right. It's not that I'm not mentally prepared, but shouldn't we guys take the initiative to talk to girls about this kind of thing? Class monitor son, you're undoubtedly the prettiest girl in our class, and the undisputed #1 beauty in our academy. How could the old man? Damn, this sentence sounds familiar. I don't know where I've heard it so many times. Forget it, if she really has this intention as a man, I can't let a woman suffer too much. Why don't I just say it first? Just as Qin Guang was letting his imagination run wild, an emotionless mechanical and electronic voice suddenly rang out in his head. It sounded like Lioli. It was just like the mission description of the heavenly holy grail that he heard in the racing god training field, which had shrunk the most. It was enunciated word by word like the voice of a Google girl, but it was spoken clearly. This voice came so abruptly. Although it wasn't loud, the content was deafening. In just a moment he broke out in a cold sweat. He wasn't prepared at all, and there were no signs in advance. No, maybe that throbbing feeling in the hospital in the afternoon could be considered a sign. The punishment realm had arrived. Countdown to the activation of the punishment realm. 10, 9. F***CK. She's even playing a countdown. Is she forcing a sense of urgency? Qin Guang looked down at the cup in his hand and secretly clenched his teeth. Damn it. Come on. I'm not afraid of you. Anyway, I'm King's savior, I won't die. Qin Guang stood still and concentrated, waiting for the heavenly holy grail to suck him into the realm of the cup. Unlike in the past, this time he was notified in advance. Perhaps he would face the punishment of the power of fate as soon as he entered. Although he didn't know what kind of enemy he would encounter, it was always good to be prepared in advance. 4, 3. In front of him, Sun Xiaoxuan quietly looked back and found that Qin Guang was standing behind him. She gathered her courage and said, "Come on, what are you doing standing there?" Qin Guang didn't answer her because the countdown had reached the last second. 1, 0. The punishment realm. Activate. Qin Guang's right hand squeezed the cup so hard that his knuckles turned white. His left hand clenched into a fist, and the expression on his face suddenly became a little ferocious. He slightly bowed and made a posture of being ready for battle. Having no time to answer Sun Xiaoxuan, he slowly closed his eyes and waited to be sucked in. After a long time, about 30 seconds, when his tense muscles began to ache, there was still no movement. What's going on? Why haven't I been pulled in yet? Qin Guang opened his eyes slightly and looked at his current posture. It was a little too awkward. He was squatting in a horse stance with a painful expression on his face. His muscles were tight and even the veins on his arms were bulging. 2 drops of sweat slowly rolled down from the edge of his temples. A cold wind blew past and his temples felt cold. That wasn't all. With his strange posture and ferocious expression, many people focused their attention on him. Sun Xiaoxuan walked back in a panic. Qin Guang, what's wrong? Is there anything wrong with your stomach? Wait, this is an illusion, right? I must have been pulled into the realm of the cup. This is an illusion, right? Do you have to make it real? I'm used to seeing mosaic scenery, and you actually made an illusion that is more real than a holographic projection. The investment is too big. No wonder it's the punishment realm derived from the realm of fate. That's how awesome it is. Look at Sun Xiaoxuan in front of me. Her expression is so vivid, and her skin is so delicate. Compared to the previous realm of the cup, this is simply a work of conscience. It's too real. Even the worried look in her eyes is so real. 666666. I really can't let my guard down. Qin Guang decided to continue tensing his nerves and muscles, ready to explode at any time. This Sun Xiaoxuan in front of me is definitely the first enemy I have to face. Humph, you want to use my care for her to deceive me? Then, with a whoosh, he would transform into a monster and swallow me? Dream on. I'm a veteran, okay? Chapter 295. If you're not feeling well, go back and sit down first. We'll pay the bill and go to the hospital right away. I'll hold the cup for you. Sun Xiaoxuan, who was standing in front of Qin Guang, spoke again. Cup. Qin Guang slowly turned his head stiffly and looked at the cup in his hand. Then the question was, if I was dragged into the world within a cup, why is this F***king cup still in my hand? Cup within a cup? Double illusion? Don't be too awesome, okay? That's completely unreasonable, right? Idiot, you weren't sucked into the cup. Why are you still standing there? Liuli spoke in his mind. This time it was really Liuli's voice. That kind of domineering, cool, and arrogant tone with a hint of contempt for mortals could not be imitated by anyone. What a scam. I'm really still in the real world. King created such a domineering countdown of 10 seconds, but in the end, nothing happened. At this moment, Qin Guang felt like he was the person in charge of a space center. The whole country was watching the countdown of the satellite launch live on TV, but when the countdown ended and the satellite took off, there was no movement at all. It was so embarrassing to find out that the fuel had been forgotten. Brother Guang, are you constipated? Bai Nyangzi's vicious ridicule came at the right time, because Qin Guang's horse stance in front of everyone was too funny. It was so embarrassing and he really wanted to strangle someone to save his face. What should he do in this situation? I'm waiting online, it's urgent. At this moment, Qin Guang even felt like vomiting blood, especially Sun Xiaoxuan, who held onto Qin Guang's shoulder worriedly and asked, "Is your stomach really uncomfortable? How about I go to the pharmacy over there and buy some laxatives?" Sun Xiaoxuan had completely forgotten about the confession. Qin Guang slowly stood up in extreme embarrassment, held his waist and shook his head. "I'm fine, I'm just a little uncomfortable. I'll be fine after sitting down." At this moment, a uniformed police officer suddenly walked in from outside the food stall. He looked a little anxious. "Everyone, leave the room as soon as possible. Immediately. Immediately." This officer had saved Qin Guang's life. The moment he appeared, everyone's attention was on him. Qin Guang also turned to look at him. He had a vague impression of him. He seemed to have seen him before when Wu Tong brought him to the Wenqing police station. This person also remembered Qin Guang and strode over. At first he seemed to want to say something, but after thinking for a while he only said, "Brothers, you guys should leave quickly. Don't wander outside now. We have to make sure that there is no one on the street in 10 minutes. "What's wrong?" Qin Guang asked. "I can't tell you, I don't want to cause panic. Anyway, I just want to pack up quickly. Really, I'm not joking with you. I have to warn the others. Boss, you have 5 minutes. If there are still any customers sitting outside when I come back in 5 minutes, I will arrest them." After saying that, the police officer left and jogged to another hot pot restaurant across the street. Everyone looked at other places on the street. Indeed, on the same street there were many police officers going around notifying people, and people were already leaving the street in a panic. What's going on? Qin Guang's mind was a mess. He subconsciously thought that this might have something to do with the punishment realm. At that moment, an electronic voice sounded in his mind again. "Punishment realm mission announcement. Save sister in danger." What? Does that mean that the punishment realm this time is not a mission in the cup, but directly happening in the real world? In just a few seconds, there were fewer and fewer people on the street. Some people even took advantage of the situation and rushed into the internet cafe. The strong sense of danger was getting stronger and stronger. Qin Guang's mind was still a mess. He didn't understand why the punishment realm was not in the cup, but in the real world. But he knew that the Holy Grail was not joking. He counted out 1,000 yuan from his wallet and threw it to the stall owner. Then he turned to Sun Xiaoxuan and said, "I don't know what's going on, but it seems like it's too late to go back to school. The police wouldn't make such a big joke for no reason. Everyone go to the internet cafe and leave the street first." The two returned to the table of the class. Everyone was discussing what the police was trying to say. They couldn't make up their minds. Qin Guang took a deep breath. "Everyone go to the internet cafe now. I'll pay for all the internet fees tonight. If we can't leave, we'll play all night in the internet cafe. Don't worry about what's going on. Just listen to the police. Hurry up, we won't get a chance if we're late." It turned out that the last sentence he said was useful. After exams, it was time to play games and relax. The 30 or so people in the class teamed up to play games. It was a spectacular and fun scene. Regardless of gender, everyone rushed to the internet cafe. Walking at the back of the crowd, Qin Guang's mind was still confused. "Sister? Don't joke around. I'm an only child. No, I only have a sister who died 3 months ago. Also, why would the realm of punishment of the heavenly Holy Grail appear in the real world? This doesn't make sense. Okay. Could it be that the realm in the cup is the real world? That's ridiculous. I don't exist alone in the real world. I'm standing on Earth. Earth is so big. There are so many people on Earth. It's fine if it's just Earth. Outside of Earth is the endless universe. There's no boundary between the two. Strictly speaking, Earth and any stardust in any corner of the universe are considered to exist in the same space. You're telling me this is your realm in the cup? The endless universe is your realm in the cup? Are you King kidding me? This isn't the sea of moments where you can see your brother's hand. Forget it. I can't care so much. The most important thing now is to figure out what the realm of punishment is." As he walked up the stairs, Qin Guang went through the entire process of the realm of punishment appearing in his mind. First, the heavenly Holy Grail suddenly told him that the realm of punishment had been activated. However, he wasn't pulled into the realm in the cup. Instead, he was acting cute. Then, the police officer from the Wenxing town branch appeared. He only asked everyone to leave the streets as soon as possible. He didn't say what happened. Then, the heavenly Holy Grail immediately notified the mission target of the realm of punishment. It was as if the police officer's notification had triggered some condition. Damn it. What's the connection between the two? No, could it be that the heavenly Holy Grail's sister is Wu Tong? I'm not related to her by blood. I just acknowledged it verbally. She's in danger? What's this? The strongest person in history? I don't believe it. Something big must have happened outside. Otherwise, with the usual style of the Chinese police, stability is more important than anything else. If the situation wasn't so serious that it couldn't be any worse, it would be impossible for such a martial law to happen. Even if the current emperor were to go on patrol, it wouldn't be possible. Even if the emperor were to go on patrol, he would at least start sealing the roads 5 to 6 hours in advance. The more Qin Guang thought about it, the more confused he became and the more uneasy he felt. "Lioli, come out right now. What's going on?" Damn Lioli. She dropped the ball at the crucial moment and pretended to be offline. After saying that he wasn't pulled into the realm in the cup, she didn't do anything. She didn't even come out to explain it to him. After waiting for a few seconds, Lioli still didn't say anything. "Don't King joke with me. What's going on?" Qin Guang didn't know where he got the courage from. Perhaps the uneasiness in his heart was too strong. He actually roared in his mind. Chapter 296. Azure finally agreed reluctantly. "It's nothing important. I think you should just go to the internet cafe and play a few games of Dota. After a few hours, the punishment realm will naturally pass." "I don't have to do anything? I can pass the punishment realm just lying down?" Qin Guang raised his eyebrows and said to Azure in his mind. Lioli continued, "Strictly speaking, that's the case and I hope so too. Actually, I didn't think that the life realm would be so big. Things are getting a little out of control, so I suggest you pretend that you don't know anything." "There won't be any punishment for failing the mission? I won't die?" Azure said with even more certainty, "There won't be any punishment for you. Just play the game in peace and don't worry about this." After all, even if you complete this mission, there doesn't seem to be any benefits. This Empress really doesn't suggest you get involved. The more casual Lu Li sounded, the less confident Qin Guang felt in his heart. He had already guessed that something would happen. Now that Azure said this, how could he agree with it? What's going on? Don't King play dumb with me? Azure disappeared. There was no movement. She had completely disappeared. Picking up the cup, Qin Guang wanted to throw it out, but he held back in the end. Forget it. This woman is unreliable. I'll ask her myself. Qin Guang pushed Sun Xiaoxuan and the others into the internet cafe and turned to walk outside. Sun Xiaoxuan, you guys go in first. I'll go ask what's going on. Sun Xiaoxuan wanted to follow him out in a hurry. Her woman's intuition told her that she couldn't let Qin Guang go just like that. Qin Guang swung his hand, not letting Sun Xiaoxuan grab him. He said anxiously, "Go in. Didn't you hear what the police said? You're the class monitor. You have to look after the whole class. Don't let anything happen to them. But you can't leave. I have to look after you too," Sun Xiaoxuan said loudly. Qin Guang shook his head. "I can't explain it to you, but I really have something important to ask. Don't worry about me, I am not an ordinary person." After saying that, he was afraid that Sun Xiaoxuan would be worried that he would run out again, so he steeled his heart and moved closer to her. He put his arms around her shoulders and whispered in her ear, "Be good and listen to me. Don't make trouble for me. Quickly go inside. I'll be fine. Promise me that none of you will leave the internet cafe before I call you, okay?" As he spoke, Qin Guang pushed Sun Xiaoxuan into the internet cafe and pulled the manager over. Qin Guang and Wenwen had beaten up countless people in front of this internet cafe. He was a famous person and the employee recognized him at a glance. "Brother, what's the matter?" Qin Guang took out 2,000 yuan from his pocket and threw it to the internet cafe manager. "This is all the cash I have. These are all my classmates. I'll pay for everyone's internet fees. If it's not enough, I'll transfer the money to you. Now lock the door. Don't do any other business today." The internet cafe manager didn't want to agree. "Brother, this isn't good." Qin Guang glared at him. "Do you believe that I'll bring my boss to tear down your internet cafe?" Of course, the internet cafe manager knew that the boss he was talking about was the super strong female T-Rex. He groaned in his heart, lowered his head and locked the door firmly. Okay. You have the bigger fist, so you have the final say." Qin Guang said goodbye to Sun Xiaoxuan, Lin Jingwei and the others who were looking at him through the fence and turned to leave. No one could do anything about him. Although they felt that it was not right for him to go out alone, they couldn't stop him. He had just taken 2 steps when 2 crisp popping sounds came from a distance about 2 miles away. It was very abrupt. It sounded like firecrackers but brighter. Qin Guang frowned. "It's not a festival today. There's no reason for people to set off firecrackers at 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening." Just as he was thinking about this, the police officers who were doing the last bit of security down there trembled and gathered together. Qin Guang's heart skipped a beat. Was that a gunshot? Sun Xiaoxuan, who was behind the fence of the internet cafe, asked loudly, "Qin Guang, what was that sound?" Qin Guang smiled and waved his hand indifferently. "I just saw someone set off fireworks over there. It's pretty, but it's not a problem. You guys go in first. I'll go down and ask the police what's going on. If there's nothing else, I'll come back up. But no matter what, none of you are allowed to come out. Do you hear me?" With that, Qin Guang planned to run down the stairs and rush toward the group of police officers. He had just taken a step when the electronic voice of the heavenly Holy Grail suddenly popped up in his head. It almost made Qin Guang trip and roll down the stairs. Mission description. If the mission fails or the mission is abandoned, then the sister dies and the savior loses nothing. Then there was no more. Qin Guang held onto the stairs and waited for a while. In the end, the heavenly Holy Grail really was a man of few words. Qin Guang fiercely hammered the cup in his bag as he hurriedly walked down to the police officers who were planning to leave. What the F***ck? Not only did this prompt not contain any substantial information, but it also made his balls hurt even more. No matter what, there was only one thing for sure, and that was that someone would really die. If the heavenly Holy Grail said that someone would die, then it definitely wouldn't be a joke. The words spoken by this emotionless mechanical voice made it hard to believe even if one didn't want to. There was a high chance that it was a gunshot, and the police officers were solemnly waiting downstairs. It must be something big. At this moment, Qin Guang already understood that the person involved in this punishment realm was indeed Wu Tong. Moreover, if it wasn't handled well, Wu Tong would really die. So this was the meaning of the saying, You will lose as much as you gain? If one manipulated fate, one would receive a backlash from fate. If one defied fate and forcefully saved a family member's life, then the price would be losing another family member's life. This was the punishment of the realm of life. But why was it Wu Tong? Qin Guang thought to himself. She wasn't my sister at all. She was just casually claiming to be my sister. No. Qin Guang recalled the foreboding of his heart palpitations in the afternoon. At that time he seemed to have gone along with Wu Tong's words and agreed that she was his sister? Previously, Azure had said that the punishment realm could descend at any time. This meant that it had already been prepared, like a sword of Damocles hanging above his head. Once he did something to trigger the opportunity, it would ruthlessly slash down. She was implicated by him. Motherf asterisk her. B asterisk starred. D asterisk emenet. What should I do? According to the usual behavior of the realm within a cup, it couldn't possibly not give me a chance to succeed at all, right? The prompt just now said that Wu Tong would only die if the mission failed or if she gave up on the mission. Then what if the mission succeeded? She definitely wouldn't have to die. Wait a minute. You guys wait a minute. Qin Guang's mind was in a mess, but he didn't slow down. He caught up with the group of police officers who were planning to leave and shouted from behind. He had to get to the bottom of the matter. Chapter 297. Several police officers were suddenly stopped. They were a little unhappy at first. After all, their time was very tight. But when they looked back and found that it was Qin Guang, especially when 3 of them knew Qin Guang, things became easier. Brother-in-law, what's the matter? The policeman who had greeted Qin Guang at the food stall turned around and answered Qin Guang's words. He said to the others, "You guys go first. I'll run to catch up." Just now in front of Qin Guang he was still restrained. Now that there was no outsider, it was easy to call him brother-in-law. Qin Guang was too lazy to argue with him about the title. He just asked in a hurry, "Buddy, I think it's a big deal. Can you tell me what happened?" As he spoke, Qin Guang pointed in the direction where he heard the sound of gunshots just now. The man's face changed at first. He hesitated and didn't want to say it, but in the end the identity of Qin Guang's brother-in-law prevailed. He swallowed his saliva and said, "I'll tell you about it, brother-in-law. Please don't disclose it again. It's also because Captain Wu just rushed over there. Otherwise I definitely wouldn't tell you. It's really troublesome." Qin Guang said anxiously, "What's wrong? Is it really a gunshot?" The man said fiercely, "I haven't received any notice from the bureau, but I think it's very likely to be a gunshot. Something happened at the airport about half an hour ago." He pointed in the direction of the airport. Qin Guang knew that Shuangyue County, where Wenxing Town was located, was also the location of Wujing City Airport. The airport was about 5 or 6 kilometers northwest of Wenxing Town. What happened? The internationally wanted criminal was recognized when he landed at the airport. Originally he was to be arrested on the spot and even executed by shooting. Unexpectedly, there was someone outside the airport who helped them break through the blockade. And then? At this moment, Qin Guang had a bad premonition in his heart. At that time, there was a heavy exchange of fire at the airport. One of them was killed and one of our own was killed. There are about a dozen criminals left in 2 cars. One escaped to the west, and the other is heading towards Wenxing Town. I wasn't sure about the ones heading west, but the ones heading our way were blocked by the SWAT team that reacted in time. They temporarily retreated to the number 5 steel works over there and are now trapped. Damn, this group of grandsons are all crazy. Their firepower is even fiercer than our special police, and their marksmanship is also very accurate. No one dares to go up. Currently, the military was still in the process of coordinating, and they might directly consider transferring military helicopters over. They are quite well trained, so they must be here to do something big. Fortunately, we discovered them first, or God knows how big of a mess they would have made. Qin Guang knew that the old Wusan Steel Works that this guy was talking about was called Wujing City 3rd Steel Rolling Mill. It had been prosperous for a period of time in the early years. It was quite large and had thousands of employees. But later, because of the overall concentration of resources in the national steel industry, the high transportation costs, and because of backward technology and other reasons, this large state-owned steel rolling mill that was built in a non-mining area slowly declined. A few years ago, it went bankrupt and was liquidated, leaving only a large abandoned factory to raise a flock of crows as a memorial to its former glory. When he was a freshman, the whole class of environmental sciences went there together, and had a special barbecue spring outing in the old factory. Chen Guang began to imagine the scene of several vicious criminals using the abandoned factory as a stronghold to deal with the police. It had to be said that the abandoned steel factory with a solid structure, good ventilation, and large windows everywhere, but only 2 stairs up and down were quite suitable for those desperados to stubbornly resist. When he thought that Wu Tong was also there, he became more and more panicked and hurriedly said, "Then you just said that Wu Tong also went there. Criminals with firepower even fiercer than the SWAT team shouldn't be something that patrol officers like you can get involved in, right? What is she doing there? Can you call her back?" He didn't expect this guy to become calm. "As expected of my brother-in-law, you really care about our Wu team. Don't worry, the innermost layer of the encirclement is the work of the SWAT team. None of the local police officers who don't have weapons can go there. Someone like me who has the establishment but is famous for being fat and having low professional ability, was sent to guard the nearby streets with a few of my brothers to prevent trouble before it happens. Only the Wu team and a dozen other elites from our bureau were called over. Their main task is not to exchange fire with the other party, but to form the second layer of encirclement. They are basically useless just to make up the numbers." "Really?" Chen Guang's heart slightly relaxed. The guy nodded again. "Of course, why would I lie to you? In another 10 minutes the troops will arrive and it will cause a lot of noise. Also, those international criminals are really amazing, and they are very famous internationally. I heard that one of them is a renegade instructor of some kind of special force. Us small police officers are really no match for them, so it's not worth losing our lives." "They don't have hostages?" Chen Guang asked again. The guy saw that his colleagues were already far away, so he waved his hand and said, "No, the airport reacted quickly and didn't give them a chance. I don't have much time today, so I won't talk to you anymore. I'll be leaving first. Next time you and Wu team have a wedding, remember to call me." After he finished speaking, he dragged his half-fat body and ran forward like a wisp of smoke. Although he said that he was a weakling, in fact he was a fatty with nimble movements. On the other side, when Chen Guang heard that Wu Tong didn't have to directly go to the front line to exchange fire with the other party, he felt slightly relieved, but then he thought that something was wrong. Since Wu Tong didn't have to go close, why did the Heavenly Holy Grail's notification say that Wu Tong would die if the mission failed? Just as he was thinking about this, the Heavenly Holy Grail's electronic voice sounded again. Mission description added. Mission target sister's fate has been successfully changed, she is in danger, and has entered the stage of defying fate. If the Savior doesn't take any action, sister will definitely die. F***CK. I knew it wasn't that simple. Chen Guang was so angry that he stomped his feet. Although he didn't know what happened to Wu Tong, it definitely wasn't something good. Forget it, let's go to that broken factory first. Thus, Chen Guang immediately made his way to the third steel mill. Fortunately, he and his roommates would often take a stroll around Wenxing Town on their bicycles. Occasionally they'd go to the neighboring White Town to have some White Town pig intestine noodles. Although they couldn't be considered as having a thorough understanding of Wenxing Town's surroundings, they definitely knew more than half of it. He plunged into the forest by the side of the road, knowing that there was a dirt road that led to the steel mill more than 2 miles away. "Idiot. I suggest you don't go." Seeing that he had made up his mind, Lioli, who had been pretending to disappear, couldn't hold it in anymore. Chen Guang shook his head. "How can I not go? The mission description said that if I don't go, she will definitely die. In other words, no matter what the power of fate does, how it punishes me, how it controls Wu Tong's fate, only I can save her. Right? Don't lie to me." "Absolutely. You can't lie to me." Lioli was silent for a few seconds, which was rare, before she said faintly, "That's true. Things started because of you. You plucked the string of fate and saved your mother's life, so there must be a relative of yours in danger." Chapter 298. "But she's not my biological sister," Chen Guang said in a low voice as he ran. Shrugging her shoulders in Chen Guang's heart, Lioli continued, "Even if that's the case, the punishment realm wouldn't have looked for Wu Tong, and there's a higher chance for it to happen to your father. But coincidentally, she met your father today and chatted with him for a long time, which caused them to be tainted by karma. Regardless of your family or yourself, everyone has acknowledged her as your sister. Even if she's just a god sister and not a biological sister, she can't get away from this karma. In addition, I speculate that it might be because she's engaged in a high-risk business, so the Bell of Destiny looked for her to save some energy. All living beings in this world are controlled by fate. No matter what her original fate is, since she's targeted by the realm of destiny, her fate is to meet with an unexpected calamity today. Even if she doesn't die in the hands of that wanted criminal, she'll definitely die before midnight tonight. Maybe she gets electrocuted, maybe she gets in a car accident, or even the chandelier above her head falls while she's sleeping on the bed. Of course, I don't think she can survive this calamity. Qin Guang was furious. F***ck. How the F***ck can I save her? Isn't she destined to fail the mission from the beginning? Liuli sighed again. I really don't want to tell you. After all, the realm in cup is related to your real world. It's not in the heavenly holy grail. If something unexpected happens, I might not be able to protect you with my current strength. You should know that this is not the realm in the cup. You don't have an immortal body, and you don't have a chance to resurrect with full health. Qin Guang's breath stagnated and he stopped walking. No matter whether I'm in the real world or not, isn't it still considered the realm in cup? This is the realm in cup, but it's also your real world. The realm of destiny is different from the ordinary realm in cup. Your real world is even more different. When the two are entangled, it's already beyond my control. I can't protect you and the heavenly holy grail can't protect you. That's why I'm determined not to let you go. Women, there are plenty of fish in the sea. It's fine if one dies, but where can't we find beautiful women? Really, you should go back and pretend that you don't know anything. Have a good sleep. After tomorrow you will still be Qin Guang. You can continue to live your life. Just treat Wu Tong as someone who has never appeared in your life. Maybe you can even thank her for saving your father's life. Isn't that great? What kind of joke is this? How the hell am I supposed to do that? Qin Guang finally couldn't hold back and roared. He ran forward again. I was the one who implicated him in this mess. Now that he's going to die, you want me to stand by and watch? I'm the master of the heavenly holy grail. Just now, I mentioned the fate reversal stage. Does that mean that I, the master of the holy grail, can forcefully reverse fate? Only I can save her, right? This time, Liuli finally stopped playing dumb. Indeed, the only one who can break the game is you. Karma moves because of you, and it can only be restored because of you. After the realm of fate and your real world fuse together, the two powers intertwined. Your entire world is filled with the power of the realm of fate. No one can escape or go against it. Although this power isn't strong and can't even be sensed, the so-called fate only needs to borrow power. It's just like the theory of the butterfly effect in your world. However, as the master of the Holy Grail, you hold the heavenly Holy Grail. You're not in the 9 realms. With the power of the heavenly Holy Grail supporting you, you're completely different from others. I can borrow the power of fate in the realm of fate, but I can't reverse it. Only you, Qin Guang, can go against fate with your own power. You can reverse fate and save Wu Tong's life. This is also the punishment of the realm of fate. If you want to escape punishment, you can only defeat the power of fate that wants to take Wu Tong's life. You must do it. Listening to Liuli talk about the mysteries of the entire punishment realm, Qin Guang only felt endless shock. He raised his head to look at the vast starry sky, feeling that it was inconceivable. He stretched out his hand slightly, as if he could feel an invisible power on his fingertips. You can feel it, right? This is the power of the heavenly Holy Grail. When the punishment realm was activated, it had already enveloped your entire universe. In other places, it's so thin that it can be completely ignored. It's only slightly dense around you, so only you can reverse fate. But I really don't want you to go because you might really die. If you die, everything will be over. After saying that, Liuli paused. I'm not joking with you, really? I will die. Qin Guang's running footsteps stopped again. He was only a mile away from the steel mill. He could faintly see the figures of the police patrolling in front of him. At this moment, these people seemed to be in a bit of a panic. They weren't in their normal state of waiting for a hare to come to them. Something really happened. But what should I do? Qin Guang lowered his head to look at his body. He had a sports bag with the heavenly Holy Grail inside. He touched his trouser pocket. That's right, there was also a sharp dagger that he snatched from that hooligan. Other than that, there was nothing else. Those heavily armed police and special forces couldn't do anything. Although he had rich experience in killing with cold weapons in the Sea of Transient and could be considered a cold-blooded executioner, he hadn't even killed a chicken in the real world. He was just a bit more ruthless when fighting. How could he be compared to those terrifying international fugitives? Of course not. Bang, bang. Gunshots rang out again and there was another short exchange of gunfire. Listening to the ear-piercing gunshots and the slightly panicked noises of the police in front of him, something happened. If I turn a blind eye and do nothing, she will definitely die. Those police and special forces in front of him, as well as the incoming special forces and armed helicopters, are all useless. No one can save her. Perhaps these fugitives will die without a burial place, but Wu Tong's life is destined to be lost. The only one who can save her is me. Qin Guang really wanted to tell himself loudly that if anything really happened to Wu Tong, it was all his fault. If he were to back down today, he would have to live in regret for the rest of his life. He understood the logic, but he couldn't take a step forward. Especially when Lu Li kept repeating that sentence in his ear, it was like a death warrant that was destroying his will. You can't go. You will die. You will really die. 10 minutes before the incident happened, Wu Tong was driving alone in the town for her routine patrol. She even saw Qin Guang and his gang eating and drinking at a food stall. However, she was working and there were quite a lot of people there, so she didn't get out of the car to greet Qin Guang. She only planned to give him a call after she was done with her patrol today and tell him that she saw him being corrupt outside today. She wanted him to treat her to a meal later. This guy seems to be living quite comfortably. Chapter 299. After complaining about Qin Guang's corruption, she had received an order to drive there. On the way, Chief Ding had repeatedly reminded her that she, as the branch captain of the branch, could only guard the perimeter with other colleagues, and that she should never be greedy for credit. The criminals inside were extremely vicious, and ordinary police officers couldn't deal with them. Although Wu Tong was tough, she understood. About 3 minutes ago, Wu Tong had driven the police car to the front, followed by 2 other police cars from the Wenxing branch. In front of her was the second perimeter formed by the police, and about 200 meters ahead were dozens of SWAT officers hiding behind various bunkers. Less than 20 meters ahead of the bunkers was the abandoned 2-story factory building. Seeing that they were getting closer to the second perimeter, Wu Tong started to get nervous. She let go of the accelerator to step on the brake, and her right hand was already on the gun at her waist. However, her car didn't slow down. When she stepped on the brake, it felt like she was stepping on air and there was no feedback force at all. The brake was broken. Seeing that the colleagues in front of the second perimeter were getting closer and closer, Wu Tong couldn't control the car at all. She could only stick her head out of the window and shout, excuse me, this broken car's brake is broken." The colleagues in front of the perimeter were all dumbfounded. "At such a critical moment, you said your brake was broken." Helpless, the colleagues in the second perimeter could only jump to the side, barely dodging the car. Wu Tong's police car crossed the second perimeter and headed in the direction of the SWAT officers. The brake was completely broken, and the car was at least 60 kilometers per hour. Wu Tong's head was about to explode and she twisted the steering wheel hard. Then her body tilted and her head hit the B-pillar. When she came back to her senses, she was in a daze. What? The entire steering wheel fell off. Wu Tong stared blankly at the steering wheel in her hands, and the steering wheel that was supposed to be connected to it was now only supported by a section of steel pipe. She felt like she was about to collapse. If she had known earlier, the broken car that was bought in the police station in the 90s should have been replaced a long time ago. Other than the horn, it sounded everywhere and something would happen sooner or later. That unlucky Chief Ding didn't listen, and insisted on saving the money to become an excellent unit. First, the brakes were broken and now the steering wheel was gone. More than 100 meters in front of him was the territory of several internationally wanted criminals. Obviously, he was going to crash into them. This broken car really broke down at the right time. He killed a person. Screw you to death. Wu Tong wasn't the only one who thought this way. The hundreds of police officers and special forces surrounding them were also cursing in their hearts. Stop the car. Some people shouted it out while others roared in their hearts, but it was useless. Nothing could stop Wu Tong's car from passing the cover of the SWAT team. The SWAT team could even clearly see Wu Tong's pained and desperate eyes as she sat in the driver's seat. Bang. Bang bang bang. At this moment, the atmosphere was tense, and an intense exchange of fire could break out at any time. The robbers who were quietly hiding by the window of the factory immediately saw the audacious police car and fired without hesitation. The windshield of Wu Tong's police car was instantly shot into a spider web. She reacted quickly, and when she knew it was impossible, she curled up her body and lay down, barely escaping. The robbers' bullets swept across the driver's seat but didn't hit her. Therefore, under everyone's dumbfounded gaze, Wu Tong and her police car first knocked away the wooden boxes that the robbers had piled up in front of the factory, then slightly slowed down before crashing into a support pillar that was more than 50 centimeters in diameter in the middle of the factory, and finally came to a stop. Which branch's idiot is this? Damn it. Idiot. I'm going to kill him. Isn't he sending himself to be a hostage? The captain of the special forces in charge of temporary command was also on the verge of breaking down. Standing next to him was Chief Ding from the Wenxing branch. He already knew who the unlucky idiot was from the other two police officers in the other cars. Chief Ding's legs were about to turn into soaked fried dough sticks. Captain Gu, that's Wu Tong in that car, Department Chief Wu's daughter. Chief Ji's eyes widened as if he had heard the most terrifying thing in the world. This veteran soldier, who had at least 3 bullet holes in his body, couldn't hold it in anymore. He took a deep breath and finally said, "Motherf asterisk Kerr." The word Motherf asterisk Kerr probably accurately summed up the feelings of all the police officers here at this time. As for the international felons who were guarding the perimeter, they were the complete opposite of the police officers outside. Thank God. They really thought they were dead. Based on the style of Wuxia, the two sides were in a deadlock, and the real heavy firepower of the other side must have already been mobilized. They originally thought that they and the others would definitely die under the rocket launched by the helicopter. They didn't expect God to bless them and send them such a big gift. The guardian god of Samaria must have heard my prayers. One of them, who looked like a Middle Eastern man, was about to kneel down and thank God. 3 black muzzles were pointed at Wu Tong's police car. A Chinese man got slightly closer and said loudly, "If the person inside is still alive, squeak. Otherwise I'll count to 3 and then I'll throw a grenade through your car window." 3. Wu Tong looked at her rather shabby gun awkwardly and decisively hid behind the car door. Squeak. The atmosphere was a little tense. She was afraid that the other side would open fire at the slightest disagreement. If that happened, she would really be dead. It was better to act cute first and see if they could mediate. Sure enough, the Chinese man grinned. "A female comrade? Not bad, not bad. Raise your hands and crawl out of the car door yourself. Don't try to open the door or I'll shoot you into a sieve." Wu Tong did as she was told. When she stuck her head out and saw the 3 black muzzles, she completely lost all thoughts of struggling. She just thought, "I'm really going to die because of Chief Ding's broken car this time. Even if I directly hit the factory wall, it'd be good. First, the brakes broke, then the steering wheel fell off, and then it accurately plunged into the factory door like an automatic grenade. Even if I hit the factory wall, it'd be good. Why am I so unlucky? I'm probably going to be the unluckiest police officer in history, right? If I die like this today, will I still have a chance to be honored as a martyr? I'll be the shame of the 5 Beijing police force, right?" Wu Tong would never have guessed that her encounter was not really a coincidence. Instead, the power of fate had taken control of her life at this critical moment. She, who was supposed to be safely outside the second warning line, had plunged headfirst into a den of thieves. At this time, Qin Guang was making his last struggle in the distant woods. Because of the sudden change caused by Wu Tong, the police officers who were originally patrolling outside the second warning line gradually gathered inside. Looking at the expressions of the leaders in front, they knew that something big had happened. Of course, it was a big deal. The only daughter of the head of the public security system of Dechuan province was kidnapped by vicious criminals. More importantly, the head was now far less than 50 years old. It was self-evident what it meant. Chapter 300. The situation was already very serious, and now that the descendant of such a big shot was involved, the police officers on the scene were on the verge of breaking down. If Wu Tong died here, it would be useless even if the criminals inside died 10,000 times. Even if all the criminals hiding in the factory were killed and this serious incident that was close to a terrorist attack was perfectly resolved, the fate that awaited the people in charge here today would probably not be good. There were many stories about Wu Shan that were almost legendary and bloody, but everyone knew that Wu Tong was his only family. If he lost Wu Tong as well, who knew how crazy this man who had the potential to step into the central command would become? Captain Gu and Chief Ding, the 2 insiders, were well aware of this. The others were only slightly panicking, but the 2 of them only felt great fear in their hearts. The 2 of them turned their heads to look at the abandoned factory in the distance. For a moment, they felt as if the air had become a heavy burden that pressed down on their shoulders. It was so heavy that they could not breathe. "Listen up, people outside. We want a helicopter. It's filled with oil. I'll give you 15 minutes or you'll lose this female comrade forever." Wu Tong was pushed to the window. The other party did not torture her, but her hands were firmly bound. However, when the Chinese criminal shouted, he pointed a gun at her temple, not giving her any chance to escape. She could either die or stand here obediently as the most eye-catching hostage. The purpose of the other party pushing Wu Tong out was to tell the people outside that their hostage was still alive and not to try to fight to the death. Then, before Chief Ding and Captain Gu could answer, Wu Tong was pulled back again and thrown into a corner, unable to move. Not only were her hands tied, but her feet were also tightly bound. She could only take half a step when she walked. It was obvious that this group of well-trained criminals had no intention of negotiating with the police. This was someone else's territory. Other than the hostage, everything else was out of control. Once they showed any signs of being willing to negotiate, it would be easy to fall into the other party's trap. As for whether the other party was willing to accept her conditions, they would just have to observe for another 2 minutes. The Middle Eastern man stood not far in front of Wu Tong, looking at her with Wu Tong's gun in his hand. He looked Wu Tong up and down with great interest. From the moment they captured her, she had been very cooperative. He thought to himself that perhaps he should try to take it a step further. She would not resist anyway, right? Mr. Sergio, are all Chinese women this beautiful? Even a random policewoman is so charming. Although the Middle Easterners were impulsive, they were experienced. They knew that any move they made at this time had to be approved by the temporary leader among them. The Chinese man known as Sergio was the one who had grabbed Wu Tong earlier. He put on a straight face and said, "Zayed, you're wrong. There might not even be one woman as beautiful as her in 100,000 people. But I advise you not to touch her. You don't understand Chinese women. She was a police officer and knew how to deal with us when she was a hostage, so she was very cooperative. But if you plan to treat her like the women in your hometown, I bet $1 million that there's a 90% chance that she'll fight you to the death." Zayed was in disbelief and expressed his incomprehension. Could it be that to Chinese women, that kind of thing is more important than their lives? She would also be afraid of death, right? Sergio glared at him. Even if there's only a 50% chance, you can't act rashly. Right now, she's our only hope of survival. Put away your thoughts and leave this place alive. You can still sleep with hundreds or even thousands of women. Okay, this is your territory. I'll listen to you. Zayed shrugged indifferently. Although he didn't think much of it, he changed his mind. Although Wu Tong wasn't very proficient in English, she could roughly understand 70% of the conversation between the two men. She still didn't move, but the expression in her eyes became even colder. Zayed suddenly nodded and said to himself, "Sergio is right. You'll fight me to the death." Wu Tong was shocked. She didn't expect him to be so observant. This middle-aged man with an unshaven beard was not stupid at all. Outside, Bureau Chief Ding and Captain Gu had immediately reported Wu Tong's kidnapping to Wu Shan. The instructions they received were very simple. Do your best to stabilize the criminal's emotions and wait for him to arrive. In addition, Wu Shan was already on his way here and would arrive in about 20 minutes. Although Captain Gu, Bureau Chief Ding, and even the director of Shuangyue County who had just arrived felt that it would be useless for Wu Shan to arrive, he was still the head of the department. His daughter was being held hostage, so his orders were unquestionable. However, the other party only gave him 15 minutes, so they needed to negotiate. The negotiation only lasted for 30 seconds before it broke down. The negotiator had just stated that due to the urgency of the situation, the helicopter would need at least half an hour to arrive when the loudspeaker in his hand was shot through the window. From the moment the other party extended the muzzle and took aim to accurately shoot the loudspeaker, it took less than 3 seconds. His loudspeaker had only poked out a small part of it from the bunker. The terrifying sniper was so strong that it made people despair. The special police sniper lying in ambush in the distance didn't even have time to turn his gun around. From the beginning to the end, the military literacy displayed by the other party clearly told everyone that it was impossible to rescue the hostage. Have you really decided? Even if you really die, you still want to go? Liuli was still making one last effort to dissuade Qin Guang. However, at this moment, Qin Guang's footsteps had finally become firm. He gently pushed aside the bushes and moved forward bit by bit like a cat. Hearing Liuli's words, Qin Guang didn't stop moving and replied, "Yes, I've decided. I want to go, I must go. I know my current behavior is very stupid. Before today, I didn't expect myself to be so great, but now, I really want to be great once in a while." "Aren't you afraid of death?" "If I die, so be it. There are always some things that people have to do in their lives. If it wasn't because of me with my current ability, I wouldn't do something that I'm not confident in. But now I can't just stand by and do nothing. This is the karma that I created, my punishment realm, so of course only I can destroy it with my own hands. Even you wouldn't want your savior to be someone who's afraid of death, right?" After a pause, Qin Guang continued, "I don't know what's waiting for me in front of me. I don't even know what kind of fate I'll have to face after getting involved with you in the heavenly Holy Grail. But you told me from the beginning that if I fail the test of the real realm in the cup, I'll die. If I don't have the courage to be fearless, how can I face the true dangers that might appear in the 3,000 worlds? It can't be that every test world is as gentle as the heavenly Holy Grail, right? Even in the Sea of Time, I've already died 95 times. Although I managed to escape danger in the end, I'm only 5 times away from dying, right? Since I've already let the heavenly Holy Grail recognize me as its master and changed my fate, I'm no longer an ordinary person. If I don't have the courage to be decisive and always think that nothing will go wrong, how can I accompany you to the end of the 3,000 worlds? Liuli was silent for a while. All right, I'll help you. Qin Guang fiercely clenched the dagger in his hand. Hiding in the forest, he looked at the factory in the distance and grinned. I've been waiting for you to say this for a long time. Even if I know that I'm going to die, as long as you can help me, I'll be able to grasp a slim chance of survival. This is the fate that I, Qin Guang, have chosen. Without regrets, there's no turning back. Imperceptibly, a thick smell of blood gradually gushed out from his body, but then suddenly disappeared. Qin Guang recalled the 20 years he spent in the Sea of Time. It was as if he once again felt the enemy's blood splashing on his face. That scalding feeling made his blood gradually warm up. The opponent is a well-trained bandit, but I'm also the all-powerful second officer of the Sea of Time. His blood, which had gradually cooled down in real life, began to burn again. Chapter 301. Liuli's help wasn't limited to words alone. About a minute later, when Qin Guang was about to leave the cover of the bushes and expose himself to the eyes of the patrolling police officers, Liuli said, "There's a small river 50 meters to the right from here. Follow the river for about 200 meters, and there's a circular water pipe that's half the height of a person hidden behind the water plants. You can go in directly from there." Liuli's voice sounded extremely tired. "I'm so tired. Just now, this Empress used her divine power to scan this entire area. The little stock that I saved up from your statue of Ao Ta with great difficulty has been used up again. You're such a useless prodigal. Now, clear your mind and wait for me to enlighten you. Hurry up and don't dawdle." "What prodigal? You're the prodigal woman." Before Qin Guang could say anything, he could only complain in his heart. Then he felt as if someone had forcefully stuffed something into his brain. After pondering for a while, he was so shocked that his mouth opened wide. What appeared in his mind was a 3D three-dimensional image of the abandoned steel mill in front of him. From the structure of the house to the distribution of the underground drainage pipes, everything was there. It was very similar to the structural modeling commonly used in architecture. After pondering for a while, his mind felt as if he was sitting in front of a computer and looking at a 3D model. This model even had the function of dragging and automatically zooming in and out. What the heck is this 3D printing scanner? It's really too useful. Alright, that's all I can do to help you. I can't take it anymore. I'm leaving first. I hope you're still alive when I wake up." After Liuli finished speaking, she completely disappeared without a trace. Qin Guang squeezed the heavenly Holy Grail in his sports bag. He thought to himself that she had indeed helped a lot. Although he only had a dagger at the moment, he could control the situation of the house in front of him just like when he was running corpses in CS in the past. Especially the complicated underground drainage pipe structure, it was his only breakthrough point. Unlike other production enterprises, the wastewater of the steel mill was mainly cooling water. It had a lot of water, but it had low pollution. Therefore, in the early days, the steel mills almost didn't consider the separation of rainwater and sewage. The rainwater ditch and the wastewater ditch were all put together after coming out from each factory. The huge pipe that Liuli mentioned was the drainage outlet of the entire rolling mill. Behind this outlet was the complicated underground pipe network structure of the entire rolling mill. At this time, it was impossible for Qin Guang to swagger over to the factory in front of the police. People would only think that he was crazy. Therefore, sneaking into the drainage pipe without anyone noticing was his only choice. He crouched down and crawled in the circular drainage pipe. He seemed to be in an awkward situation. However, Qin Guang himself was rejoicing. He thanked the heavens that this broken factory had been out of production for many years. If there was water in this unlucky pipe, that would be awesome. Just as he was thinking about this, he pressed his claws on something sticky. This was definitely not dog poop. Definitely not dog poop. Of course not. Why the F***ck was there a pile of sh**t here? Is this a sign from the heavens that I'm going to be lucky today? What was worse was that Qin Guang didn't know what the situation outside was like. He didn't know how much time he had left, so he could only desperately crawl forward. Thanks to the powerful LED flash of the Popcorn 6P, it was really useful at this time. Otherwise, he wouldn't know how many times he would hit his head in this dark drainage pipe. That pile of *T just now? That was an auspicious sign from the gods, okay? However, Qin Guang didn't dare to fully release the light from the flash. Instead, he pressed a finger on the light bead, letting only some light pass through his finger. Right now, his only chance of winning was to catch the other party off guard and think of a way to save them in a flash. Once he alerted the enemy in advance, it meant that he would really have to rely on this broken dagger to fight against several armed bandits head-on. The key was that he couldn't save Wu Tong in that way. He would only put himself in danger for no reason. Thinking about the situation, I can probably last for 1 second? Once I make a move, I must hit the target in one shot. There won't be a second chance. On the other hand, there were 8 minutes left before the 15-minute limit given by Sergio. The military's assault helicopter was approaching quickly. They had delayed for a few minutes to dismantle the weapons and equipment on it. They didn't expect that the assault helicopter, which was supposed to deal a fatal blow to the bandits, would become a negotiation tool. Several leaders explained the situation to the troops behind Wu Shan's back. Although the other side was furious, they didn't hesitate to agree to the proposal of temporarily saving Wu Tong's life even if they had to give up an assault helicopter and let the international criminals go free. The person in charge of the military knew Wu Shan better and could roughly guess his plan. This pillar of the nation probably wanted to use himself as a hostage in exchange for Wu Tong. Many years ago, because of his stubbornness and persistence, he lost his wife and son. Now he was as stubborn as ever, but he was definitely not willing to lose his only family, his daughter. Therefore, even if it was just a simple order from him to stall for 20 minutes, it wasn't hard to guess his true intentions. Currently, Wu Tong was the one being held hostage, so the situation wasn't irreparable. To this country, Wu Tong wasn't indispensable. However, if it was Wu Shan, the impact of this would be like an earthquake and it would be immeasurable. Perhaps Wu Shan wasn't indispensable to the entire country, but to the interest groups that had invested heavily in him for so many years, Wu Shan's life couldn't be lost. Therefore they would rather give up the helicopter and let Wu Tong go. Even though they knew that this wouldn't save Wu Tong from danger because the other party wouldn't let go of the hostage easily. Instead, it would cause Wu Tong to be taken away for good. However, they still did it without hesitation. Captain Go, Bureau Chief Ding, and the others wanted to use the helicopter to temporarily save Wu Tong's life. The people from the military agreed so readily, but their thoughts were deeper. Wu Tong's life was not important, and they only needed to save Wu Shan's life. Even though they knew Wu Shan would fly into a rage after this, someone in his position would understand the importance of this sooner or later. Of course, they had a good reason. The other party had given them a time difference of only 15 minutes. If they didn't give up the helicopter with both hands, their daughter would die before they arrived. Then they could explain it to Wu Shan, who would fly into a rage after this. Unknowingly, Wu Tong's life was given up. Squatting on the ground, Wu Tong peeked at the bandits in the factory from time to time. Looking at the 2 light spots flying in from afar, she had mixed feelings. She knew the helicopter was coming. Chapter 302. It had only been 10 minutes since the other party proposed the conditions, and the helicopter had already arrived, which meant that the commander outside had chosen to compromise because of her. This meant that this group of vicious bandits could really get a helicopter full of fuel. With these well-trained people, the possibility of them successfully escaping from this place was instantly magnified to 90%. But even so, she still had no hope of getting out of danger. They had to guard against the time bomb installed on the helicopter, and they also had to guard against all kinds of means that could bring the helicopter down. Therefore, there was no doubt that she would also be taken on the helicopter. By then, this group of bandits would really be like birds flying in the sky and fish in the sea. The root of all this was because she was extremely unlucky to plunge into the factory, turning an encirclement that should have been in the bag into a rescue with a slim chance of success. Wu Tong thought to herself, no matter how it happened, whether it was luck or not, the fault was ultimately caused by her. Now that the situation has come to this, should I take the initiative to take the responsibility? If I had slowed down earlier and found out that there was a problem with the car's brakes, I wouldn't have crashed into the factory, right? These people are so highly trained in military affairs. If they escape and lurk in the country, how much harm will they cause? These thoughts were churning in Wu Tong's mind. She kind of wanted to give up. If I take the initiative to die, as long as I die, the people outside will no longer have any scruples, and this group of people won't be able to escape, right? But if I have a choice, I really don't want to die. I still have a lot of things to do, and I haven't avenged my mother and brother. As a police officer, the belief of protecting the country and punishing evil was entangled in her heart with the desire to survive of an ordinary person. At the same time, Qin Guang quietly lay in the drainage ditch on the first floor of the factory. Through the cement grill on the drainage ditch, he could even see the back of the white man standing not far away, and he could clearly hear these people's whispered conversation. In order to get here within 4 minutes, Qin Guang had already gone all out. When he was about to reach the bottom of the factory, he turned off his phone and fell into darkness. He could only rely on the 3D map left by Lioli in his mind to determine the direction to move forward. Unfortunately, although the 3D map was good, a human sense of distance was not that of a machine. Even though he knew that there was a turn ahead, he could not accurately grasp the distance in the pitch-black darkness. Every time he swerved through the pipes and ditches, he would either end up crashing into a corner, or he would be lucky enough to touch the wall first. In addition, because of the long years of disrepair, the cement pipe was not orderly, and some parts even collapsed. As Qin Guang climbed, he would bump into a sharp corner that suddenly protruded from the top of the pipe. It was all Lioli's fault for disconnecting again. Otherwise, with her following and commanding them, they wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state. However, Qin Guang also knew that he could not be too harsh on Lioli. He was glad that he had managed to become a great perfection racer god training ground the last time he raced and got himself a statue of half an alto. Lioli's godly power was able to support him for today's squandering. Otherwise, if he did not have this detailed 3D image in his mind, he really would not have had any chance of winning. In the beginning, the pipe was still fine. It was at least half a person's height and it was very fast. Then he entered the rain-polluted ditch in the factory, and the situation began to change. It became a square ditch that was less than 60 centimeters wide and about 50 centimeters high, but at least he could crawl forward. When he approached the last half of the factory, it was completely miserable. It became a ditch that was less than 50 centimeters wide and 40 centimeters high. With Qin Guang's body size, he could only move forward like a caterpillar while lying flat. Fortunately, this small section was less than 15 meters away, and he had to move at least 2 minutes for these 15 meters. Fortunately, he managed to get here in time, even if his head was badly bruised. Qin Guang remembered a sentence he often said when he played games. "My head is very hard." Touching his forehead, which was full of bumps that almost looked like the Buddha, his eyes were filled with tears. It did not feel very hard. The ditch fence that Qin Guang was hiding in was located in a corner. There was no light at all, but he could quietly lift his head and look out through the gap. 1, 2, 3, 4. There were 4 bandits on the first floor of the factory. Maybe there were people guarding the second floor, but Qin Guang did not know the number. These bandits looked like they were super good at fighting. Logically speaking, he wanted to just lie in the sewer and pretend to be a zombie. In another corner, he only saw Wu Tong squatting in the corner. Her hands and feet were tied, but fortunately her clothes and hair were not messed up. It seemed that she had not suffered any real pain so far. At that moment, the white man standing in front of him turned around. Qin Guang quickly pulled his head back, cold sweat dripping down his back. This group of bandits was really not simple. He had only looked at them from behind, and this guy actually felt a faint sense of vigilance. The white man turned around and frowned slightly. He whispered to himself, "What the hell? What's going on?" He slightly tightened his grip on the AAC Honey Badger assault rifle and took 2 steps toward the corner where the sewer fence was, intending to see what was going on. Hearing the sound of the man's leather boots on the ground getting closer and closer, Qin Guang quickly twisted his body and retreated into the depths of the ditch. If this bastard opened the fence, he would be able to see him lying there, unable to move. He was dead. If that really happened, could he tell him a joke and let him go? For example, could he reluctantly stretch out his right hand and say, "Hey?" It was already difficult to crawl forward in this narrow sewer, and it was even more difficult to shrink back now. He could not move too much. The sound of leather boots was getting closer and closer as if they were right in front of him. Qin Guang broke out in a cold sweat. "Wash the motor." At that moment, the sound of the helicopter's propellers was getting closer. The bandits who had been hiding behind cover finally knew that the helicopter was coming. "It seems that we picked up an amazing hostage. I gave them 15 minutes and the helicopter arrived in just 10 minutes. Sergio laughed heartily as he walked toward the corner where the white man was hiding. He then instructed, "Velen, go upstairs and take a look. I'll get them to park the helicopter behind this house." We need a safe escape route. The Velen that Sergio was calling out to was the white man who was about to head to the corner. When he heard that the helicopter had arrived, Velen heaved a sigh of relief. He tossed aside the indistinct feeling of discomfort and replied, "No problem." He then walked up the stairs. Qin Guang let out a long sigh of relief. The old man was, after all, a man who was truly blessed by the gods. At the critical moment, he had managed to escape by the skin of his teeth. Logically speaking, my poisonous healer is a little powerful. That brother named Velen had already shifted to where I was, but I was still able to heal him back? Old immortal Su Dong's magic power was boundless. Full. Chapter 303. Apart from that, he also heard the conversation between the two of them clearly and instantly figured out what was going on. He knew that the helicopter was the product of the negotiation between the two parties, and he instantly deduced the safe escape route that the bandits wanted. He also deduced that the other party would definitely use that route to head to the open space behind the factory where the helicopter could land. As an outsider, it was impossible for him to get any help from the police or the military. In fact, they didn't even know that there was a daring person on their side who had quietly sneaked a few meters away from the bandits. With just a dagger, if he wanted to rescue someone from the hands of the armed bandits, he would have to use an unorthodox method. He would have to play his cards out of the box and use his understanding of the terrain to the fullest. The 3D model that Luli had forcefully stuffed into his head flashed through his mind in an instant. Combined with the opponent's movements that he had speculated, a crazy plan that had a high chance of success rose from the bottom of his heart. His chance had appeared. Sometimes people's wisdom was forced out of them. Qin Guang praised himself as he retreated into the depths of the gutter. "I'm really smart." He was almost fascinated by his ingenious idea. "Why am I so King talented? My brilliance can light up the night sky." On the other side, Wu Shan was roaring angrily into the phone. "Didn't I tell you to wait for me? What's the deal with the helicopter?" Wu Shan was furious at the decision made by the temporary commanders on this side without authorization. However, they bit the bullet and insisted on the other party's conditions. In turn, they pushed the order to send the helicopter to the military. Even though everyone knew that handing over the helicopter might not be enough to save Wu Tong, and that the other party might not dare to kill Wu Tong on the spot if the time was delayed for more than 15 minutes, no one dared to take the risk. The military's quick response seemed to be deliberately timed to send the group of bandits and Wu Tong away before Wu Shan arrived, not giving Wu Shan a chance to walk right into the trap. "Little girl. Get up. Thanks to you we can leave this place. Even if I'm an atheist, I have to thank the gods for sending such a perfect hostage like you." Sergio walked in front of Wu Tong and tried to pull her up. Wu Tong stood up with her back against the pillar. She spat at Sergio and hit his face. She decided to provoke the man. She gave up. Wu Tong felt that if the other party really left safely in the helicopter, the fate that awaited her would definitely not be good. Instead of that, she might as well be a glorious martyr. Unexpectedly, when Sergio's face was covered with spit, he merely smiled coldly and wiped the spit off his face. He was not angry at all. "Are you seeking death?" "Little girl, calm down, don't be impulsive. Once we're safe we'll let you go. I promise I won't touch a single hair on your body. Because of you, the military directly sent an armed helicopter. You don't have to explain yourself, I can guess that your identity is really not ordinary. I'm not stupid. I know the consequences of killing you. We didn't come to Wuxia to become enemies with the Wuxia military. We have other work to do. It's all because of that idiot Velen's mistake that things ended up like this. Let us leave peacefully and everyone will be happy. Your death won't do us any good. I know better than you how terrifying an enraged Wuxia army is." Wu Tong's eyes lit up. Really? Sometimes human nature was really fragile. Even if she was seeking death just a moment ago, when the hope of survival was placed in front of her, Wu Tong's heart immediately loosened. Sergio smiled again. "Of course. You can only choose to believe me, right? Put away your senseless sense of justice and cooperate. This will be good for everyone. We really don't want to go against the Wuxia government. We don't intend to start a massacre on this great land. Everything that happened today was just a bad accident." Wu Tong subconsciously felt that Sergio was lying to her. Even though he looked sincere, every word he said seemed like a lie. Wu Tong understood the logic, but there was a tiny possibility that she hoped that what he said was true. She had imagined herself as a police officer becoming a martyr in a certain operation countless times. However, the sudden death in a confrontation and the anxiety she felt after becoming a hostage were completely different. Once again she decided to compromise. She would not give up hope of survival until the very last moment. After being pushed to the front of the crowd, Wu Tong staggered forward. She used to think that she was an indomitable tough woman, but now she was no different from an ordinary woman. How she wished that a godlike man would descend from the sky and save her from this group of demons. After thinking about it, could anyone in this world save her unscathed in such a situation? Kill 7 such terrifying bandits in an instant and not give them a chance to shoot me? Was that even possible? The Wuxia man named Shurjiu was paying full attention to the situation around him. The other 6 bandits of different skin colors were also on high alert. A total of 7 people were all hunched over. Their bodies were stretched taut like cheetahs ready to pounce. The helicopter had completely stopped over there, and the soldiers on the plane had long been evacuated. At the request of Shurjiu and the others, all the police officers and soldiers moved to the front of the abandoned factory, completely abandoning the encirclement. On the surface, it looked like a broad road from here all the way to the helicopter. The hope of escaping was close at hand. Shurjiu and the others did not want any accidents to happen, so they were still very cautious. At this time, they were in a small alley that extended from the back door of the abandoned factory. On one side of the alley was another row of houses in the L-shaped factory. However, only half of the brick wall had collapsed. On the other side was a wall that had also collapsed. Using the buildings on both sides as cover, this group of internationally notorious bandits quickly moved forward. The helicopter was quietly parked in the open space about 20 meters in front of the alley. In the eyes of Shurjiu and the others, she was as beautiful as a goddess who had taken off her clothes and was waiting to be touched. Seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the exit of the alley, Shurjiu raised his hand and motioned for everyone to stop. Then he said, "Zayed, go ahead and have a look. Use your sensitive nose to sniff for the smell of snipers." The Middle Eastern man who was called rolled his eyes. "Shurjiu, when we get out of here, I will bite you to death with my bull terrier." Although he said that, he still obeyed the order and scurried forward with quick steps. Chapter 304. The 20-meter distance from the alley entrance to the helicopter was the last hurdle for the 7 bandits. Although they had hostages in their hands, World 9, who was well aware of the strength of the Chinese military, knew that with so much time having passed, the other party could easily mobilize more than 20 top snipers to hide in the dark. If the 7 of them suddenly appeared in the open area, it was entirely possible that they would be killed at the same time. The Chinese soldiers, who had won the International Special Forces tournament for several years in a row, could really do it. At that time, they would become the 7 beautiful flowers of blood embellished on the Chinese military's achievements. Therefore it was better to be safe than sorry. He let Zayed check out the situation first. He had an extraordinarily keen intuition when it came to snipers lurking in the dark. Zayed's movements were soft and agile. Like a civet, he darted through the alleyway, silent yet extremely fast. He elegantly twisted his body, brushing past the collapsed bricks and cement pillars. His toes gently touched the cement cover of a sewer catchment well, and he continued moving forward. When he landed, the cement cover shook a little, but it did not affect the balance of a top sniper like him. When he reached the entrance of the alley, Zayed looked around for a long time before quickly running back. This time, however, when he passed through the sewer catchment well, his clothes were grazed by a steel bar protruding from the cement pillar, causing a tear to appear. Zayed stood on the cement cover and glared fiercely at the steel bar before stomping his feet. "Damn it! How dare you break my prince's signature combat uniform? When I come back, I will make that stupid steel bar of yours into a pendant around my neck." World 9 and the others, "Guys, there is no sniper in front. I swear by my 15 years as an instructor. Also, guess what I saw? Waiting for us outside is AZ-10. I can't believe my eyes." Zayed's words made everyone excited and they could not help but fall into ecstasy. World 9 also found it hard to believe. "Don't joke around. We just want a helicopter. There's no need for them to send us such good equipment, right?" Zayed laughed. "God knows what's going on. Maybe they can only mobilize this type of armed helicopter within 15 minutes? On the other side, Wu Shan was clutching his cell phone tightly. The voice of the man on the other end of the phone made him furious, but there was nothing he could do. He said, "Wu Shan, we gave away AZ-10. Wu Shan roared angrily, "You know who he is. If you insist on letting them go, you will be court-martialed." The person on the other side of the phone grunted. I understand. That's why I hid 16 remote-controlled bombs on the helicopter. My finger has been on the switch all this time. I'm just waiting for you to say the word. Either press the button or I'll be court-martialed. If they were allowed to leave safely, Wu Tong's chances of survival might be 10%. You and I are brothers. I'm willing to go to court for this 10% chance of my niece surviving. Wu Shan held his breath. He didn't expect the other party to be so determined. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Wu Shan had never hesitated when making a decision in his life, but at this moment he couldn't make up his mind. I know Wu Tong is important to you, but you are more important to us. We will not allow you to throw away your life. No matter how angry you are, it will be meaningless. You just need to tell me your decision. I will respect all your decisions. I will bear all your mistakes for you. The voice on the other side of the phone was still cold, but it was suppressing a great determination. Wu Shan leaned his head against the window and looked in the direction of Laowu's third steel factory from afar. He knew that as long as he said the word, the night sky would soon burst into a blood-red firework that could pierce through the darkness. Any of the remote-controlled bombs could destroy the helicopter in an instant. The power of 16 bombs exploding at the same time could destroy everything, turning the helicopter into molten iron in an instant. But when the time came, his daughter would also be on the helicopter. After the helicopter takes off, press the button. When Wu Shan said this, it seemed as if he had used up all the strength in his body. Then he hung up the phone with a snap, clutched his throat and punched himself in the chest again and again. Bastard. You bunch of bastards. Why do you have to do this to me? Why do you have to torture me like this? Why don't you give me a chance? Wait another 5 minutes, even if it's just 5 minutes. Wu Shan finally couldn't hold it in anymore and sobbed. He wanted so badly to exchange himself for Wu Tong, but things couldn't always go according to his wishes. For the power in his hands he had lost too much. Now he even had to give up the last bit of hope. Just as the person on the phone said, even if the other party really took Wu Tong away safely, when they were out of danger, what awaited his daughter was almost certain death. Wu Tong's chance of survival was at most 10%. He really couldn't let the person on the other side of the phone go to the military court for this slim chance. The price was too heavy. When he really weighed the pros and cons of this matter in his heart, he knew why Wu Tong still refused to forgive him. So, his daughter's life can also be weighed? Shouldn't I do my best even if there's only a 1 in a million chance? Am I really going to calculate that ridiculous percentage? I really am a pathetic politician. Wu Tong was right, I really don't deserve to have a family. I don't deserve to be a husband, much less a father. I'm just a pathetic tool, a tool controlled by my own and others' desire for power. Why don't you let me die? Bastard. All bastards. I'm also a bastard. Wu Shan slammed his head against the bulletproof glass, the loud sound almost causing the driver in front to lose control. Wu Shan himself was also dizzy from the impact. At this time, there was another dizzy person who was cursing someone in his head for being a bastard. This person was none other than Master Guang, who was as quick-witted as Zhuge Liang. Zhuge Liang used his brain to emerge victorious in every battle. Qin Guang previously thought that he was just as quick-witted. Now he was indeed about to use his brain to achieve his goal. But Qin Guang only wanted to roar at the sky. I said use my brain, not just my head like this. This kind of usage had nothing to do with one's brain. That bastard Zayat, I'll remember you. If I get the chance, I'll definitely cut you into pieces. You must have been a broken-winged angel who had a grudge against me in your past life. Emma, my head is so dizzy I'm about to faint. That's right, there was indeed a ghost under the concrete cover that Zayat had stepped on earlier. Chapter 305. About 2 minutes ago, before the group of people came out from the abandoned factory, Qin Guang had arrived here through the underwater pipe network. His target was the water collection well. Originally, the broken walls on both sides were not that compact. He had used his fastest speed to move some gravel and cement pillars over, forcefully compressing the space on both sides of the alley. His goal was very simple. He wanted those who wanted to pass through here to pass through the cement cover above his head. In addition, he moved the circular cement cover to a different position. He first pushed it up and then pushed it slightly forward. Under normal circumstances, if someone were to step on the cement cover in this state, the cover would immediately flip over and the person would slide down into the water collection well. No matter how powerful a person was, they would find it hard to react to such an unexpected situation. Not to mention, Qin Guang would add more force when the cover flipped over. That way he would be able to catch the other party off guard. As long as the other party did not tie Wu Tong up, Qin Guang believed that with this move, he would be able to snatch Wu Tong away in an instant. Once Wu Tong was dragged into the underground pipe network with the 3D model in his mind, the chances of successfully taking Wu Tong away was as high as 376%. Don't ask me how I calculated this. This is metaphysics and cannot be explained. The plan was perfect. All that was missing was a little sister Wu falling from the sky. But here came the problem. The one who fell down could only be Wu Tong and no one else. Thus, Qin Guang had to place both his legs on both sides of the water collection well. Then he placed his head and both his hands on the shaking cement cover. He used his head and hands to hold the cover until Wu Tong stepped on it. From his position he was able to see the person in front through the gap in the cover. It was not difficult to identify Wu Tong from her pants and feet. Everything appeared perfect until Zayed stepped on it twice. The first time Qin Guang easily held on. However, the sudden impact caused him to be pressed down hard. The hard cement cover slammed into his head, causing pain. Thankfully, he had transformed into a Buddha Knight in advance and accumulated enough bumps on his head. Disregarding everything else, the bumps on his head gave him the ability to resist the impact. It was as if he was wearing a safety helmet. There was a bump on his head, but he didn't panic. It was not until Zayed stepped on him for the second time that Qin Guang was still feeling smug in his heart. Then he was brutally hit in the head. It was one thing for this damn Middle Eastern bastard to stand on it, but this bastard actually stomped on it. This kick dealt a critical blow to Qin Guang, who nearly fainted from the impact. Monstrous hatred surged in his heart, and he bit the dagger so hard that it almost broke. Even in their wildest dreams, Shurjiao and the others would never have imagined that someone would be able to sneak up on them under their noses. Not only that, the person would have heard their every move clearly and waited here in advance. At this moment they were mesmerized by the Z10 in front of them, and their guard was at its lowest. Guys, let's go. Leave this place. Shurjiao fiercely pushed Wu Tong forward as he spoke. He couldn't help but smile. Wu Tong was pushed forward by Shurjiao. However, her feet were tied up and she could not move forward. She staggered slightly and nearly fell. Wu Tong bit her lips. She was also stunned by the Z10. The pain, regret, and struggle in her heart were indescribable. When Qin Guang saw this scene through the crack, he gradually calmed down from the rage in his heart. Because he knew that success or failure depended on this. Later on, Zayed, Modelo and I will take this woman and walk in front. Don't rush out of the alley. Remember to be on guard at all times. As long as they don't have the confidence to kill all 7 of us in an instant, they won't act rashly. This woman is really important. Shurjiao pushed Wu Tong again and turned around to speak to the people behind him. The others nodded in unison, thinking that his arrangement was very reasonable. At that moment, Zayed, who was standing beside Shurjiao, suddenly widened his eyes. His mouth gradually fell open and he wanted to shout out loud. However, he held back. F***K. It turned out that when Shurjiao turned around, Wu Tong had finally stepped on the cement cover above Qin Guang's head. Now, do it. Qin Guang's legs, which were originally standing on both sides of the well, abruptly closed and his entire body began to fall. His head that was on the cement cover slid down rapidly. At the same time, he reached out with both hands to grab the edge of the cover and pulled it down. The cover flipped. Wu Tong was caught off guard and she lost her balance. She subconsciously cried out, "Ah!" Immediately after that, her entire body rapidly fell. At the same time, a hand reached out from below to grab her ankle and pull her down at an even faster speed. Someone is coming to save me? Who is it? As Wu Tong fell, all these thoughts flashed through her mind. She desperately twisted her body and controlled her posture, hoping to completely fall in the shortest amount of time possible. On the other side, when Zayed cursed out loud and slowly raised his gun, Wu Tong's entire body was only left with half of her body. Her long hair was still floating in the air. Everything had happened too quickly and too suddenly. No one could have imagined that someone would be lying in ambush. The moment the hostages stepped onto the concrete slab, Shurjiao was momentarily distracted. Wu Tong, who had been unlucky the whole night, finally got lucky for once. Below, Qin Guang first landed at the bottom of the 2-meter deep well. He spread his arms and prepared to catch Wu Tong, who was falling from above. Behind him was the 50-centimeter high, 60-centimeter wide trench. As long as he could successfully shove Wu Tong in, today's mission would be a success. It was pitch black down there. The other party would definitely not dare to recklessly follow them down. At least that was what Qingguang hoped for. Then, in another 30 seconds, he would be able to completely disappear into the complex underground network of pipes. Finally, Wu Tong landed. Qingguang gently held her in his arms and the dagger in his mouth slid out. With lightning speed he cut the rope binding her hands. However, it did not hurt her skin at all. Immediately after that, Qingguang grabbed her by the buttocks and pushed her into the trench behind him. When she was inside he whispered, "Hurry up and go." Then Qingguang shrunk his neck, turned around and dove into the trench. Then he used the dagger to cut the rope binding her legs. The entire set of movements was as smooth as flowing water. The dagger was so nimble that it became his extra fingers. It was all thanks to the 20 years of experience in using cold weapons on the Sea of Transient. Of course, the strongest pencil sharpening skill in history that he had painstakingly honed in the pencil sharpening world could also be considered as an enhanced skill. When it came to firearms, the difference between Qingguang and Shijiao and the others could not be calculated. However, when it came to cold weapons like daggers and swords, Qingguang could be considered as an absolute expert. Qingguang. Wu Tong was bent over in the trench. When she heard Qingguang's voice, she was instantly stunned. Why is it him? Chapter 306. Wu Tong had imagined the scene of someone coming to save her many times. They could be the bodyguards of his father, Wu Shan, who had unique skills. They could also be the top-notch special forces soldiers in the military region of Wujing, who were not well known but were powerful. They could also be their colleagues in the special police force who were not afraid of death. Of course, she knew that these ideas were fantasies. The other party was too strong, and the time left for her people to rescue her was too short. No one could quietly appear here without them noticing. Until she fell into the well, she was completely desperate and didn't expect a savior to come from the sky. But the savior did come. Although it wasn't as invincible and domineering as the one who came from the sky, it sprang out from under her feet like a groundhog. Although it wasn't handsome enough, it was really sudden and effective. But why was it the younger brother who was still angry with her in the afternoon? Wasn't he a college student? Wu Tong really couldn't figure it out, so she was in a daze. Seeing that she didn't move, Qingguang was anxious. He pushed her round buttocks from behind and squeezed himself into the gutter. Crawl forward. Wu Tong immediately came back to her senses. She would ask him after they escaped. Now was not the time to think about it. She rushed forward. Qingguang's lips, which were biting the dagger, curled up slightly. He crawled forward and hid his whole body under the gutter. At this time, Qingguang couldn't help but feel proud. It was really a safe move. The group of grandsons above wouldn't dare to jump down without knowing the situation. Then he heard a crack behind him as if something had fallen and smashed into the sole of his foot. Qingguang bent his neck and looked back. He felt bad. Under the dim moonlight that leaked through the well, he could vaguely see what was lying quietly behind his anus. Damn it. Yes, it was a mini grenade the size of a baby's fist. Under the moonlight, the grenade lay quietly in the shadow, shining with a charming metallic luster. Indeed, they didn't follow him rashly. They just threw down a grenade without hesitation. In this short moment, Qingguang felt that his thinking speed was faster than the speed of light. He really thought about a lot of things. I'm still a virgin. I'm still so young. I just earned 180 million, and I haven't spent it yet. The worst thing in the world was to be alive but penniless. What was even worse was that the person had died, but the $180 million had not been spent. My father was going to have to send his son off. I didn't become a real rich second generation, nor was I a rich first generation. However, I left my parents a huge inheritance that they wouldn't be able to spend in a few lifetimes. Just thinking about it made him feel miserable. Also, if the grenade were to explode at such a close distance, wouldn't this daisy that I've kept for 20 years blossom? I was an indisputably straight man before I died, but when I died I became a gay man. The fate of life was truly indescribable in a few words. Also, if I spread out my body, would I be able to block the impact of the grenade's explosion? Wu Tong would be able to survive, right? A saint like me will definitely be able to reincarnate well in my next life, right? Wait, block the impact of the explosion? Logically speaking, I have a pretty good idea. Maybe I can try it. Perhaps it only took 0.5 seconds, but after countless thoughts in his mind took a huge detour around Wujing City's third ring road, he finally found the only chance of survival in this certain death situation. As the saying goes, heaven never seals off one's way. The one was the only chance of survival. Another 0.5 seconds later, his hand was already on the zipper of the sports bag in front of his chest. That's right, the heavenly holy grail inside was the one. Even though Lioli had disconnected and the heavenly holy grail couldn't provide any extra help. However, it was very sturdy. Qin Guang felt that he had never moved so fast before. From the moment he had this idea, to the moment he unzipped the heavenly holy grail, to the moment he twisted off the lid, to the moment he grabbed the mini grenade that was faintly heating up from the ground and threw it into the grail, to the moment he twisted the lid back on. From start to finish, it only took about 5 seconds. Boom. Just as the lid was tightened, a dazzling light shot out from the grail, almost blinding his eyes. At the same time, there was a deafening sound that almost deafened his ears. After that, nothing happened. That's right, there really wasn't any more movement. Nothing had changed. He had survived. Alright, perhaps the heavenly holy grail becoming a little heavier could be considered a change. After all, there was a grenade that had just exploded inside. Other than that, the grail was still ice cold in his hands. There wasn't the slightest bit of heat coming out from it. Double vacuum, extremely strong insulation. I'm kneeling. Only today did I realize that it was truly an invincible divine weapon. A product of the immortal realm. A must-be of the highest quality. Tough and durable. When the light quickly dimmed, Qin Guang gripped the grail tightly and stuffed it back into his bag. Then he ruthlessly slapped Wu Tong's buttocks, who had a blank look on her face and didn't know what had happened. Hurry up and go. Wu Tong felt that her worldview had collapsed. She had seen grenades before. Although she didn't see them clearly, she could roughly guess what they were just from the sound and light effects. As she quickly crawled forward, she couldn't help but ask, "That was a grenade, right?" Qin Guang couldn't explain it to her. He could only urge her, "I'll explain it to you later." Are you born in the year of the horse? Move a little with a slap? Can we not be a scammer? Can we run faster? Wu Tong's face turned red and she didn't dare to say anything else. She lowered her head and scurried forward. Lower your head. You'll hit your head. The two of them crawled forward for about 5 to 6 meters when Qin Guang suddenly said. Wu Tong asked curiously, "How did you know?" Qin Guang slapped her buttocks again. The 56 bumps on my head can answer all your questions. At that moment, Wu Tong was not the only one who was shocked. Even Shurjiu and the others who were standing at the well were completely dumbfounded. The most important hostage had escaped like a rat right under their noses. Zayed, who was the first to notice this, had only considered it for less than 3 seconds before making a decision. He quickly removed the grenade from his waist, pulled the fuse and tossed it into the well. "I'll blow you up." Zayed roared angrily. Shurjiu didn't even have time to stop him. He cursed, "Zayed, you idiot." Then the 7 of them quickly retreated and fell to the ground. Zayed's mini grenade was a fortified version that he had meticulously made himself. Its power was extraordinary. There was no need for the others to point it out. Zayed knew that he had done something stupid. Although he had managed to kill the woman and the person who rescued her, which was quite satisfying, the loss outweighed the gain. Losing the hostage meant that they would no longer be able to safely cross the 20-meter gap to reach the helicopter. Since the other party could appear from the sewers, it meant that there was a way out from here. But now the passageway was about to collapse. Was there anything more depressing than this? But in reality, the grenade exploded as expected. The sound and visual effects were very powerful, proving that the mini grenade Zayed had made was extraordinary. After that, there was no more movement. The well did not collapse. Not even a wisp of smoke came out from it. The 7 international felons who were lying on the ground raised their necks to look at the well, a look of bewilderment on their faces. Does this mean that our grenade was made with special effects? It's just for show? Chapter 307. Forget it, let's not care about that. With such a loud noise, it's impossible for the Chinese military to not have made a move. We can't go to the helicopter. Without a hostage, even if we get on the helicopter, we will definitely be killed by the explosion. Shurjiu said loudly. Mr. Shurjiu, what should we do? The muscular black man, Modelo, who had been silent all this while, asked in a low, muffled voice. Go after them. Since they've snuck over here, we can definitely follow them from below and escape to the outside. Shurjiu said resolutely. Beside him, Velen muttered, but no one can guarantee how many people are waiting for us at the exit of the sewers. On the other side, Modelo had already lifted the cement cover and jumped down. Shurjiu snorted. That's why we have to move fast. As long as we catch that woman again, even if there are people waiting for us outside, the situation won't be any worse than it is now. Sure. On the other side, Zayed also jumped down with Modelo. He was really curious as to why there was no reaction from below even though his grenade had clearly exploded. The 7 bandits made a prompt decision and one by one they scurried downwards. Waylon, who was the last to fall, was more vigilant. He pulled the well's cover over and covered it tightly. He said to Sergio, who was in front of him, "I have a feeling that there's only one person on the other side?" Zayed, who was crawling at the front, shrugged his dog nose. "Velen, you're right. There's only one person." "But?" Sergio asked. "But what?" Zayed pondered for a moment. "There's a very strong smell of blood." "You can even smell that?" Modelo, who was crawling at the front, asked curiously. Zayed grunted. "This is the skill that I, Zayed, am most proud of. There's no mistaking it. The person who saved the policewoman was very terrifying. His hands were stained with blood. Only by killing humans at close range would his hands be stained with such a strong smell of blood. Modelo, you're the one who has killed the most people here, right? How many people have you killed?" Modelo thought for a moment. "I've killed about 20 to 30 people with a gun. If I've used a knife, maybe 5? Stop talking and be quiet. I can't hear anything in front of me. We'll be in big trouble if we lose him." The third of the 7 couldn't help but interrupt the chatterbox. They didn't know what was going on in front of them, so even if they had a flashlight, they didn't dare to turn it on. Since they were sure that the other party was an expert, they couldn't let their guard down. In this long and narrow tunnel of the sewer network, if the other party found a corner and waited in front of them with a machine gun in hand, no matter how elite the 7 of them were, they would definitely die without a burial ground no matter how strong they were. Of course, Qin Guang knew what was going on behind him. He had hoped that the other party would not dare to follow him for fear of harming the innocent. However, things did not develop in the direction he hoped for. After losing the hostage, it was understandable that they would make a prompt decision to follow him. What bad luck. They're following us. Hurry up. This is my phone. Take it first. Think of a way to contact the people outside. We can't shake them off. Turn on the flashlight and crawl forward. Faster. I'll recite a formula for you. Remember it well. From here forward, 3 left, 2 right, 5 left, 4 right, 3 right, 7 left, 6 right, 4 left, 4 right. Remember this sequence. Then you'll be able to enter the large pipe that leads to the outside. After you get out, contact the police and troops outside as soon as possible. As Qin Guang spoke, he took out the popcorn 6p from his sports bag and stuffed it into Wu Tong's pants. His fingertips touched the heavenly holy grail, and an idea popped up in his mind. Wu Tong took the phone back. "What do you mean? What about you?" Qin Guang was silent. "They're too fast. I'm afraid we won't be able to shake them off if we work together. Let's split up. You go out first. I'll be responsible for luring them deeper. You bring people back to save me as soon as possible." No. Wu Tong of course wouldn't agree to Qin Guang's request. Qin Guang said firmly, "We have to do it even if we can't. You're crawling too slowly. The space in this stupid pipe is so narrow. If they catch up, we'll both die. To be precise, if we don't split up and move together, we can probably live for another minute. I don't want to die with you." Wu Tong still insisted. "I'm the police officer. I should be the one luring them inside. You go out and find people." Qin Guang was furious. "Who the hell has the time to waste with you? Why are you still talking about the police's sense of justice at a time like this? If you say any more nonsense, I'll haunt you even if I die and become a ghost. You want to lure them inside? Just you? Can you stop joking? Do you know the structure of the pipe network? Do you think it's luck that I appeared there to save you? The entire underground pipe network of the 5th and 3rd steel mills is in my head, okay? As long as you get the hell out of here, I can play them to death as much as I want in here alone. Can you not screw me over? Can you not drag me down? Get lost." Wu Tong didn't expect Qin Guang to be so angry. I, your sister. The male protagonists in war movies always die because the female protagonists talk too much, okay? They could have escaped unscathed, but because they talked too much, it became a sad movie, okay? Be gentler. Don't worry about me. The underground network is very complicated. As long as you run away, I'll meet up with you in a few minutes. The 2 of us can go out for a hot pot and come back. These people are still going around in circles. It's much more complicated down there than you think. Have you memorized the formula? I forgot. It's too long. *CK. In the end, Qin Guang still dawdled a little more. Since his phone was turned on, he simply wrote a notebook on his phone and saved the formula in it. He wasted more than 30 seconds. Then he pushed Wu Tong fiercely and stuffed her into a maintenance hole next to a small well in the middle. Then he took out a wet wooden board from the water and slapped it on top of it, completely covering her. He instructed, "Stay here and don't move. When I lure them away, you can quietly crawl out according to the route written in the notebook. Don't let your phone make any noise and remember to turn off the screen. I'm leaving first." After that, Qin Guang dived into the depths himself. He only said to Wu Tong from afar, "I can climb at least twice as fast as carrying you. Please don't be like the female protagonist in the TV series and make things difficult for me. My goal is to live to the end of the story." Thump thump thump, 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 thump thump. It couldn't be helped. Blindly pursuing speed, he naturally didn't care about protecting his head. It was good to bump his head all the way. He could treat it as deliberately making noise to lure people towards him. Chapter 308. Fortunately, the 3D map in Qin Guang's mind was obtained in real time. Some places had collapsed to the point that people could not pass through. This was reflected in the 3D model, so he could detect it in advance and avoid it. Otherwise, it would have been a tragedy if he had plunged into a dead end. Wu Tong curled up in a dark corner and listened to the sounds of Shijio and the others crawling past her. She held her breath and felt an indescribable mix of emotions in her heart. Qin Guang's sudden outburst of dominance made her unable to muster up the courage to oppose him. She could only do as he asked in a daze. However, now that he had lured them away, Wu Tong could not help but feel ashamed and regretful. Although his words sounded nice, his actions were actually using his life to cover his retreat. No matter how familiar he was with the terrain, he could not change the fact that there were 7 terrifyingly powerful bandits trailing behind him. He only had a dagger. How could he deal with the 7 of them? Wu Tong desperately suppressed her crazy heartbeat. She was even afraid that the sound of her heartbeat would be heard by the bandits who were leaving. Her heartbeat was so loud that it sounded like thunder in her ears. "I always thought you didn't like me at all. I didn't expect you to be willing to die for me. Compared to you, I'm really a terrible police officer and a terrible sister." When the bandits finally left, Wu Tong gently pushed away the wooden plank in front of her. She struggled in pain and quietly walked toward the exit according to the direction Qin Guang had pointed. If Wu Tong had a gun in her hand, she would definitely choose to jump out without hesitation and sneak attack the 7 bandits from behind. Even if she could kill one of them, it would still be good. However, she was unarmed, so she could not die in such a meaningless way. Since Qin Guang had said that he could stall for time, he might be able to escape from another exit. The biggest role she could play was to rush out as soon as possible and contact the people outside as soon as possible. The earlier she could get the people to support her, the earlier she could get Qin Guang out of danger. For right. Turn right at the 4th bend. It's here. Even Wu Tong was impressed by how Qin Guang managed to memorize such a complicated escape route in his mind. After a few turns, her confidence in Qin Guang grew. At this moment, a loud noise suddenly came from the depths of the network. Boom. A few seconds later, a strong gust of air came from behind, pushing Wu Tong forward and causing her to fall. Her confidence, which had just been ignited, instantly froze. What was going on? What happened? Wu Tong's heart sank to the freezing point in that instant. There was no doubt that Qin Guang did not have any weapons. Such a deafening explosion could only have been caused by the bandits. Wu Tong's mind went blank. She couldn't care less about what Qin Guang had told her just now. She broke into a run and frantically crawled toward the source of the explosion. With such a violent explosion underground, there was no longer a need for him to inform others. The police and the army would respond in time. If Qin Guang is really dead, then I will be buried with him. I can't live alone. Wu Tong thought to herself as she desperately used her hands and feet to move forward. About 30 seconds ago, Qin Guang was stumbling all the way forward. He realized that he had underestimated the other party's capabilities. Although he had used his fastest speed to crawl through the underground pipe network, he still could not shake off the other party. Those people were so difficult to deal with that they were like leeches that had burrowed into the flesh. If this continued, it was only a matter of time before he was caught. If he was shot from behind, even if the old man had a first-generation steel door, he wouldn't be able to withstand the bullets. Listening to the sound of metal colliding with cement coming from the corner behind him, Qin Guang had goosebumps all over his body. I'm panicking. He once thought that his bravery could be compared to the martyrs who blocked the bullet hole, But when the threat of death really approached, Qin Guang sadly found that he was still very afraid of death. Forget it, since I can't escape, then I'll prepare to face it head-on. Qin Guang made up his mind and dived into the corner next to him. From here there was a terrain that he could use to turn the tables. The premise was that if the actual situation in the Heavenly Holy Grail was exactly the same as what he imagined. He fiercely stuffed his body into a collapsed gap, using both his hands and feet to push forward. Enduring the burning pain caused by the friction between his stomach and the sharp cement dregs and steel bars, he finally made his way out and dived into the puddle that was half a person's height. Even though he was prepared, he was still blinded by the strong rancid smell in the puddle. The 10-year-old rancid puddle really tasted sour and refreshing. His stomach was accidentally scratched by a steel bar hidden in the cement block. It tore open a wound about a foot long and fresh blood flowed out. Fortunately, the wound was not deep. It was just that it was soaked in the rancid water, and the pain was as if someone had ruthlessly whipped him. But Qin Guang didn't have time to think about these things. Instead, he immediately stood up and turned around to look at the place he had just come from. At this moment he was standing in a sealed underground reservoir. About half a meter of the pipe had collapsed from the hole he had just come out from, leaving only a gap that was just big enough for him to squeeze through. Once he came out, he would immediately be in this reservoir. Even with Qin Guang's physique, it was very difficult for him to pass through. The 7 bandits were generally much stronger than him, so it would be even more difficult for them to squeeze through the gap. But Qin Guang couldn't count on this thing to stop them. He wanted to live, but the other party also didn't want to die under the muzzles of the special police and soldiers who were waiting outside. Now that they had fought to this point, no one could back down. Therefore, Qin Guang took out the Heavenly Holy Grail and planned to give the other party a good time. The grenade just now had directly exploded in the cup. Relying on the power of the Heavenly Holy Grail, the deafening grenade had become a squib. But in fact it wasn't really a squib. Instead, the power of the entire explosion had been locked inside the cup. Regardless of whether it was the shrapnel that was supposed to fly everywhere or the air current that was engulfed in flames and heat waves, everything was locked inside. Perhaps this cup could be used as a delayed detonation bomb? While hiding at the opening of the sewer, Qin Guang twisted the lid of the cup with all his might. His idea was very simple. This section of the sewer was about 20 meters long. When the first bandit was lying in front of the gap, the other 6 behind him should be lined up neatly like ants. If he opened the cup at this moment and let the impact of the entire explosion be instantly released through the gap, the power would basically be about 80 to 90 times stronger than the grenade just now. It would be enough to make them suffer. In Murong Fu's words, this was called giving them a taste of their own medicine. It was a beautiful idea, but putting it into practice was extremely difficult. That was because the quick-witted Master Guang had forgotten one thing. The F*King lid couldn't be opened at all. The air pressure in the cup was about to break through the sky, and the lid was so tight that it seemed as if it had grown from it. It wasn't something that a human could handle. Kacha. Just as he was about to turn into a Spartan, a large black hand suddenly stretched out from the gap and slapped the ground. The sound was like a death knell. Really, save me. I'm really going to die. Your savior is going to die. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.